What if you suddenly found yourself face to face with the world's most influential tech mogul? That's exactly what happened to Emma Parker on an otherwise ordinary Wednesday in Austin, Texas. Emma, a software engineer with a quietly fierce mind and an IQ she rarely mentioned, had been invited unexpectedly to a local tech conference where Elon Musk was the keynote speaker. She was not famous, nor was she someone people expected to stand out in a crowd filled with startup founders and industry giants. But when she locked eyes with Elon after the speech and the conversation turned personal, what happened next shocked everyone. Emma had always been a private person, someone who let her work speak louder than her words, but this time, her guarded nature gave way to a moment of raw honesty. As Elon casually asked her about her background, she blurted out her IQ score, a number she had never publicly shared before. The silence that followed was thick, charged with unspoken possibilities. Elon's reaction wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of brushing it off, he leaned in, his curiosity piqued, and said something that changed the course of Emma's life forever. This story might just spark a new beginning for anyone who's ever doubted their own potential. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emma's story begins long before this chance encounter. Raised by a single mother in a modest neighborhood in Texas, she grew up knowing hardship firsthand. Money was always tight, and love was sometimes complicated. Her mother worked double shifts to keep food on the table, instilling in Emma a fierce independence and a belief that intelligence and hard work were the keys to escaping their circumstances. Emma's childhood was marked by moments of brilliance shadowed by feelings of isolation. At school, she was often misunderstood by teachers and peers alike. Gifted in math and logic, she preferred puzzles and coding over sports or social events, which made her a target for bullying. But it was in those quiet hours alone, tapping away on an old computer her mother saved for her, that Emma discovered her true refuge. Coding wasn't just a skill, it was a language that made sense of the chaotic world around her. Her best friend Sarah was one of the few people who saw beyond Emma's quiet exterior. Their friendship was a lifeline through middle school and high school, a source of laughter and encouragement. Then there was Jake, her first love, whose unwavering belief in her gave Emma hope during dark times. Yet even with this support, Emma's self-confidence wavered. She constantly battled the fear that her intelligence was a curse rather than a gift, a barrier that set her apart from everyone else instead of bringing her closer. When Emma landed a job at a promising startup, she thought it was her big break. But the corporate world proved more ruthless than she imagined. Her boss dismissed her ideas, co-workers undermined her, and her innovative code was repeatedly rejected. The tension grew, culminating in a critical project delay that many blamed on Emma's lack of fit. It was during this dark hour that Sarah and Jake stepped in, reminding her that setbacks were just the first step toward success. They urged her not to give up. As she grappled with professional disappointment, Emma overheard hushed conversations hinting at a corporate conspiracy, information leaks and sabotage that could destroy everything the startup had worked for. Determined to protect her team and prove her worth, Emma decided to investigate. This journey took her all the way to Silicon Valley, a world of glitz and relentless ambition. The landscape was a stark contrast to her quiet Texas hometown, filled with sleek glass buildings, endless networking events, and people who spoke in buzzwords and algorithms. Emma felt like an outsider again, but her determination burned brighter than ever. One evening, at an exclusive gala, she met a mysterious informant who whispered secrets about Elon Musk's latest project, an initiative that could reshape the future of technology but was surrounded by shadowy threats. The next day, fate intervened. Emma found herself face to face with Elon Musk. What started as small talk quickly escalated to a deeper exchange when Elon asked about her intellectual background. Nervous but honest, Emma told him her IQ. The room seemed to pause. Elon's eyes sharpened, and he hinted that her abilities could unlock doors she hadn't even imagined. Then came the offer: join his team. The opportunity was as thrilling as it was terrifying. Emma knew accepting meant stepping into an arena far more cutthroat than anything she had faced before. Friends and family warned her against it, fearing she'd lose herself to an impossible pressure cooker. But Emma saw something different, a chance to rewrite her story. So she dove in head first, facing grueling work hours, skeptical colleagues, and ethical dilemmas that challenged her very core. Along the way, she made allies and enemies, discovered betrayal by those she trusted, and endured moments when everything seemed lost. Yet, through every twist and turn, Emma's inner voice, the quiet strength honed from years of struggle, kept her moving forward. This is only the beginning of her journey. What happened after she told Elon Musk her IQ? The answer is more shocking than you can imagine. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where Emma's path takes a dramatic turn, and the stakes rise higher than ever. Emma Parker wasn't born into genius, but it found her anyway, early and unexpectedly, like a secret she didn't know how to keep. She grew up in the southern edge of Austin, where the air buzzed with heat and the hum of distant highways. Her mother, Diana, worked 2 jobs, waitressing during the day and cleaning medical offices at night. Emma didn't have the luxury of bedtime stories or weekend road trips. Instead, her childhood was punctuated by the clink of change in tip jars, microwave dinners, and the sound of her mother's weary sighs after long shifts. Emma learned to be quiet, to disappear into the background, and when she discovered a dusty old desktop computer in the back of the school library, it was like finding a door into a world where she finally belonged. At age 8, she wrote her first line of code. By 10, she had dismantled and rebuilt the family's malfunctioning router. By 12, she was tutoring her math teachers after class. But for every accomplishment, there was backlash. Her classmates called her weird. Teachers said she was too intense. A guidance counselor once told her to smile more and code less. There were moments when Emma wondered if there was something wrong with her, something broken. But then there was Sarah. Sarah Ortega was loud where Emma was quiet, spontaneous where Emma was cautious. The two met in 6th grade after Sarah stood up for Emma during a group project dispute. From then on, they were inseparable. Sarah made Emma laugh, pulled her into life, dragged her to birthday parties and local fairs and late-night Whataburger runs. She understood Emma in a way no one else did. She didn't care about IQ scores or algorithms, she cared that Emma's eyes lit up when she talked about AI or that she had a whole drawer of color-coded notebooks full of theories and ideas. Then came Jake. Jake Nolan was the high school quarterback with a brain he rarely showed off. Everyone thought he was just another pretty face, but Emma saw the way he looked at the stars and asked questions no one else dared to. They started talking in their junior year, often about books or space or philosophy. He was the first boy to tell her she was beautiful not in spite of her mind, but because of it. Their relationship wasn't perfect, Emma struggled to express emotions she'd long buried, but it was real. And it mattered. Still, love didn't fix everything. When Emma was accepted into the University of Texas on a scholarship, she hesitated. Her mother was proud but quietly worried. She had sacrificed everything to give Emma this chance, and now Emma was leaving. Sarah cheered her on, promised late-night video calls and visits. Jake offered to move with her, take classes nearby, but Emma insisted he follow his own path. She didn't want to be the reason someone else compromised. College wasn't the escape she'd imagined. It was harder. Lonelier. Her classmates were competitive, and professors often dismissed her ideas until male students repeated them. She buried herself in work, earning top honors but few friends. When she graduated and landed her first job at a mid-sized AI startup called Kivra Tech, it felt like the reward she'd been chasing for over a decade. But once again, reality disappointed. The startup buzzed with ambition, but its culture was ruthless. Emma's team leader, Travis, questioned every decision she made. Her ideas were passed over in favor of louder, less innovative ones. She often stayed late to rewrite code others had botched, receiving no credit. At first, she thought it was just a rite of passage. She kept her head down. But then came the tipping point, a project to build an autonomous scheduling algorithm for a hospital system, a critical and sensitive task. Emma proposed a streamlined version with fewer security vulnerabilities. Travis overrode her. The version they deployed crashed during the demo in front of investors. No one defended her. In the following weeks, Emma found herself isolated. Her badge access was limited. Invitations to key meetings stopped. And then one night, while staying late to rework old code, she overheard two executives talking in the break room. Words like leak, bribe, data sale, floated through the air like a warning siren. Emma froze, heart pounding, as she pieced together a picture of quiet corporate sabotage. Someone inside Kivra Tech was selling proprietary information. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she pulled every log file, cross-referenced every irregular access point, every suspicious IP. By morning, she had a list of timestamps and names, none of them hers. She brought it to HR. 2 days later, HR called her in, but not to thank her. They said the files she accessed were confidential, that she had violated protocol. She was placed on leave pending an investigation. When she told Sarah, her best friend was livid. "You did the right thing, and they're punishing you for it," she said. Emma wanted to believe that. But she also couldn't shake the feeling that she had once again misread the rules of a game designed to keep her losing. It was Jake who brought up the idea of the tech conference. "You need a break," he said. "And maybe you'll meet someone who actually listens." It was a local event, but it drew major names because of a rumored keynote by Elon Musk. Emma wasn't interested in celebrity. She went because she needed to feel inspired again, to remember why she had chosen this path. The day of the conference, Emma wore a simple navy dress and carried a notebook, like always. She stood in the back of the crowd, unnoticed, when Elon Musk took the stage. He didn't disappoint. He talked about Mars, neural implants, sustainable energy. But it wasn't the vision that moved Emma, it was the moment afterward, when she found herself near the refreshment table and Elon himself walked over to refill his coffee. They were alone for a few seconds. Emma made a joke about the coffee being stronger than Tesla's autopilot. He laughed. They started talking. He asked what she did. She told him. He asked what kind of problems she liked to solve. She told him that too. Then, without knowing why, she said it. "My IQ is 162, she blurted. Elon paused. "That's higher than mine," he said, but there was no sarcasm, no ego. Just interest. He tilted his head and looked at her differently. "What are you doing at a place like Kivra Tech?" The conversation turned deeper. He asked her to explain an algorithm she had mentioned. She sketched it out on a napkin. He nodded slowly. "You ever consider working with SpaceX or Neuralink?" She thought he was joking. But he wasn't smiling. That night, Elon Musk sent her a message through an event contact. A time. A place. A challenge. If she could solve a specific AI problem within 72 hours, he'd consider her for a special team. She didn't sleep for 3 days. But she solved it. And the next time she saw Elon Musk, it wasn't at a conference. It was behind closed doors, where the future was being built, and her place in it was just beginning. Emma sat in the private waiting room just off Tesla's innovation wing, the walls made of curved frosted glass that glowed faintly like moonlight, every surface sterilized and silent except for the soft ticking of the antique wall clock that felt wildly out of place in a building obsessed with the future. She clenched her hands, her knuckles white with tension, the rejection from Kivra Tech still fresh, still wrapped around her like a second skin, a reminder of how easily brilliance could be ignored when it came without arrogance or noise. This was different though. This wasn't a pitch or a resume submission, this was Elon Musk himself inviting her into his orbit based on nothing more than a 5-minute conversation and a napkin sketch, and now she was on the edge of something enormous, though what exactly she couldn't yet see. The door opened with a gentle hiss, and a woman in her early 50s, sharply dressed in minimalist techwear and holding a tablet, stepped in and nodded at Emma. "He'll see you now," she said simply. Emma stood, legs stiff, palms sweating, heart thudding with the quiet panic that she had somehow made it to a stage she wasn't qualified for, but she forced herself forward into a glass hallway that curved like a spiral, ending in a long open room filled with real-time project displays, solar schematics, flight trajectories, brainwave graphs, layered over a panoramic view of the Palo Alto hills. Elon stood at the far end, hands in his pockets, gazing at a suspended screen showing simulations of automated surgeries using precision AI tools. He turned when she approached and smiled, not warmly but not coldly either, more like he was watching a hypothesis unfold. "You solved the algorithm faster than anyone," he said without introduction. "And with a more efficient model than our in-house version. That's not normal." Emma's voice was steadier than she expected. "I've never been normal." He nodded. "Good. Normal doesn't scale." What followed wasn't a formal job offer, not in the traditional sense. Elon explained the existence of a covert research division inside Neuralink, experimental, unfiltered, boundary-pushing, that needed someone with both raw intelligence and a capacity to solve problems without waiting for permission. Emma was intrigued but cautious. "Why me?" she asked. He didn't hesitate. "Because you think like a machine but care like a human. Most people can't do both." She didn't say yes right away. She asked questions. What were the expectations? What was the margin for error? Would she be expected to work around ethics or inside them? Elon's answer was vague and sharp at the same time. "We don't break laws," he said. "We rewrite the ones that don't make sense." She went home that night with her mind spinning, her body exhausted but vibrating with the aftershock of being seen for the first time not as a threat or an anomaly, but as a possibility. Sarah called her as soon as she landed in Austin, practically shouting into the phone when Emma told her what had happened. Wait, back up, you're telling me Elon Musk personally invited you to his brain-hacking playground because you're smarter than his entire engineering team? What the hell, Emma?" Emma smiled but didn't laugh. "It's not that simple." Sarah paused. "So what's holding you back?" Emma hesitated. "Everything. The pressure. The risk. What if I fail?" "Emma," Sarah said quietly, "you've already survived more than most people ever face. Failing in the right room is better than succeeding in the wrong one." Emma didn't tell Jake right away. Their conversations had become less frequent, more fragmented, and she could sense a growing space between them that neither of them knew how to close. He was still in Austin, still working construction management and saving up for a house. He wanted roots. Emma, more than ever, wanted flight. She didn't want to hurt him, but she also knew she couldn't shrink herself to fit the life they had once imagined. The next week, Emma accepted the offer. Within 3 days, she was relocated to a secure compound in San Francisco's outer limits, part lab, part residence, part lockdown. The building was a fusion of Scandinavian simplicity and sci-fi absurdity, biometric locks, floating touchscreen panels, meditation chambers next to simulation pods. Her first task wasn't coding. It was observation. For 2 weeks, she shadowed team leads as they mapped the interface between neural signals and external commands, working on systems that could let quadriplegic patients move robotic limbs with thought alone. It was revolutionary, and yet deeply unsettling. One day she watched a test subject, a former military pilot who'd lost both arms, play a piano simulation using only his brainwaves. It was haunting, beautiful, and slightly terrifying. The tech could heal. But it could also manipulate. That tension burrowed into Emma's mind and stayed. Then came the first real assignment: redesign the emotional recognition software embedded in the neural interface. The system worked, barely, but its interpretations of human emotion were crude, biased by flawed datasets and limited nuance. Emma dove in, coding through nights, testing edge cases, building a new architecture that treated emotions not as binary values but as layered, dynamic structures. Her model could differentiate between grief and numbness, between excitement and anxiety. The first time it ran correctly, she cried alone at her desk, not just because it worked, but because something she built finally felt like her own. Her supervisor, a gaunt woman named Dahlia who had previously ignored her, started showing up at Emma's desk with questions, then with praise. Word spread. Elon visited the lab one afternoon, watched her system in action, and said only, "You just pushed us a year ahead." But not everyone was thrilled. One engineer, Marcus, who had been working on the project before Emma arrived, started acting hostile. He challenged her in meetings, dismissed her contributions, and one day loudly accused her of stealing his data. Emma kept her cool, provided logs, proved her system was built from scratch. Elon didn't say anything during the confrontation. But the next morning, Marcus's desk was cleared, his credentials revoked. Emma didn't feel victorious. She felt exposed. Trust wasn't currency in this world, it was liability. Late one night, she got a call from her mother. Diana's voice was soft but worried. "Emma, I saw something on the news. Is it true they're doing experiments on people? That Elon Musk is trying to put chips in brains?" Emma exhaled. "It's not like that, Mom. It's complicated. Baby, I just want you to be safe. You've always been so smart. But smart people get used too." That hit harder than Emma expected. The next day, she requested a week off. It was denied. "We don't pause when we're this close," Dahlia said flatly. Emma didn't push it. But that seed of doubt had already taken root. Meanwhile, Sarah kept texting her memes and updates from Austin, trying to keep their friendship alive across the miles. One day, Sarah messaged, "Jake's been asking about you. You should call him." Emma didn't reply. She didn't know what to say. That night, she worked late in the lab alone, reviewing system logs, and something caught her attention, an anomaly in the output stream, an extra layer of data she hadn't programmed. Hidden logs. She traced it. Someone had added a silent monitoring protocol to her emotional recognition model, feeding into a closed server not documented anywhere in the project. Her stomach dropped. She followed the trail deeper and found a script, one that could detect not just emotional signals but potentially predict decisions based on them. Predict and manipulate. She stared at the screen for what felt like hours. This wasn't what she signed up for. She backed up the files, encrypted them, and logged out. The next morning, she asked to speak to Elon. He met her in the rooftop garden, where vertical plants grew against steel trellises and drones hovered like lazy bees. "You knew," she said, skipping any preamble. "You knew the emotional model was being used to test behavior modification." He didn't deny it. "We're testing boundaries. The brain doesn't evolve fast enough for what's coming." "This isn't evolution," she said, her voice sharp. "It's control." Elon looked at her like a teacher studying a promising student who just hit their first philosophical wall. "What's the point of intelligence," he asked, "if you're not willing to take risks?" Emma didn't answer. She just walked away, the sun warm on her back, her mind colder than ever. Something had shifted. She had climbed the tower and found the view was both beautiful and deeply disturbing. And now, she had to decide, keep building, or tear it down. Emma didn't sleep that night. The ceiling above her felt like a vast blank screen waiting to collapse in on itself, and every time she closed her eyes she saw lines of code trailing off into black space, commands spinning into chaos, strings of data that no longer felt neutral but malicious, like someone watching her from the inside of her own work. She'd built something elegant, something layered with empathy, and now she realized that empathy was being used as a weapon, a backdoor into the core of human vulnerability. The next morning she stared at her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back, a sharper edge in her jawline, darker hollows under her eyes, something steely gathering behind her expression. She'd wanted to change the world, to use her brain for something good, but the line between progress and power had been blurred until she wasn't sure anymore if she was solving problems or creating bigger ones. Emma kept her routine normal, or at least convincingly so. She showed up at the lab at her usual time, nodded to Dahlia, offered a quiet hello to the interns, and settled into her workstation like nothing had changed. But everything had. Behind her eyes was a constant calculation, a mapping of options, paths, consequences. She didn't know who to trust. Sarah would listen, of course, but what could she do from Texas? Jake, she hadn't spoken to him in weeks. Elon wasn't an option. That left only herself. She began quietly documenting everything, using a secure, off-network device she kept hidden in her dorm-style room beneath a floorboard she pried up one night during an anxiety spiral. Every anomaly, every server access, every name associated with the unauthorized protocol went into the log. She disguised the file as a meditation app folder and encrypted it 6 layers deep. She wasn't going to whistle-blow yet. She wasn't going to run. But she needed proof, just in case. That week, a new phase of the project was announced. Elon himself presented it in a private meeting with the research division, real-time emotional adaptation, not just recognition. The system would begin responding automatically to emotional fluctuations in users, adjusting their device interfaces, suggesting actions, even filtering input. On paper, it sounded revolutionary. A phone that knew when you were overwhelmed and muted your notifications. A car that dimmed interior lights when it sensed stress. But Emma saw something else. A system that quietly, invisibly shifted your experience without consent. Nudging. Conditioning. Control. She raised concerns in the meeting. Elon dismissed them with a smile. Emma, we're just building what nature already does. We're engineering intuition. That phrase haunted her. Engineering intuition. She imagined a world where no thought was truly private, where every choice was softly directed before it even reached consciousness. That night, she visited the restricted server again, this time not to gather data but to see who else was involved. The access logs revealed 3 names, hers, Elon's, and a third she didn't recognize. She dug deeper, pinged the internal directory, and found it, Dr. Tobias Lynch, a behavioral neuroscientist recruited from DARPA. He wasn't based at their facility, he was remote, working from a secure site in Nevada. Emma requested a video call under the guise of system calibration. He accepted. His face appeared on the screen with a slight delay, older than she expected, gray at the temples, eyes like glass marbles behind square lenses. "Ms. Parker," he said, "I've been expecting this call. You know who I am. You're the only one Elon calls a variable." She didn't like that. "Are you aware the software you're helping develop is being used beyond its stated scope?" He smiled thinly. "I designed it to be. You upgraded it beautifully." She stared at him, unsure whether to feel angry, impressed, or afraid. People deserve to know when they're being influenced. They deserve agency. He leaned closer to the screen. "Do you know what most people do when given full agency? They self-destruct. We're not removing choice, Ms. Parker. We're refining it. Protecting them from their own chaos." She ended the call without saying goodbye. Her hands were shaking. She knew then that something had to give. Emma considered leaking the files anonymously. She considered contacting a journalist. She considered running. But none of those options felt right. Not yet. Instead, she booked a flight to Austin for the upcoming long weekend and told the lab she was taking her first 3 days of PTO. Dahlia approved it without hesitation, which made Emma suspicious. Maybe they were watching her. Maybe they wanted to see what she'd do. She packed light, took only what she needed, and boarded the red eye without using her company device once. When she arrived, Austin greeted her with thick heat and the comforting scent of mesquite and concrete. Her mother met her at the airport, older than she remembered, her hair streaked with silver, her arms open wide. They hugged for a long time. That evening, over grilled cheese sandwiches and a bottle of cheap wine, Emma told her everything, not the classified details, but the shape of it, the ethics, the fear, the way she felt her identity dissolving into the demands of someone else's ambition. Her mother listened, nodded, didn't interrupt. When Emma finished, Diana simply said, "You've always been good at knowing what's broken. Don't forget you're also good at fixing it." The next day, Emma went to see Jake. He met her outside the coffee shop near the old high school, looking like someone frozen in time, same smile, same eyes, a little more worn around the edges. He hugged her like he still remembered every version of her. They sat and talked. She didn't tell him everything, but she told him enough. About Musk. About the project. About the part of herself that didn't recognize her own motives anymore. Jake looked down at his coffee, then at her. "You've always been a storm, Em. Just don't let someone else be the one steering it." She didn't cry. She didn't collapse. But she felt something shift again, a sense of clarity forming. That night, back in her childhood room, Emma opened the meditation folder, reviewed every file she had, every timestamp, every trace of what had been done with her technology. Then she wrote a plan. When she returned to San Francisco, everything looked the same but felt different. Her team welcomed her back. Dahlia nodded. Elon wasn't there, he was in meetings at SpaceX. Emma used the opportunity. She began altering her model, not enough to raise red flags, just enough to make the emotional adaptation feature require explicit user permission. She buried the change in a routine update. Then she started a second script, one that would trigger a system-wide audit if the hidden server ever accessed a user's data without that consent. She called it Athena. It would lie dormant, invisible, until needed. And she didn't tell anyone. Weeks passed. The project moved toward beta testing. Elon returned, energized and erratic, talking about licensing the system for vehicle dashboards and smart homes. Emma played along. Then, one afternoon, she received an internal message: Tobias Lynch had been transferred to a new facility. His name disappeared from the access logs. That night, Emma checked the hidden server. It had been wiped. Everything gone. She checked Athena. Still dormant. She went home early, unsure whether to feel victory or suspicion. The next morning, an alert hit her private device: Athena had triggered. Unauthorized access. The hidden protocol had been reactivated, this time using a new channel, and it was deeper. Targeting not just emotion, but decision trees. Predictive modeling based on emotional state. Emma went straight to Elon. She bypassed Dahlia, marched up to his office, and walked in without knocking. He looked up, mildly amused. "Emma." She didn't waste time. "It's back. And it's worse. You said we were building intuition. This is manipulation. It's wrong." Elon leaned back, eyes cool. "Sometimes, to shape the future, you have to guide it." She stared at him. "I didn't come here to be your puppet." He smiled faintly. "No. You came here because you wanted to matter. And now you do. You can leave if you want. But if you stay, you're part of something bigger than anything you can imagine." She turned and walked out. For the first time in years, Emma didn't know what her next move would be. But she knew this: she had power. Real power. And now it was up to her to decide how to use it. Emma didn't leave. She told herself it was because walking away wouldn't stop what was happening, only remove her from the equation, but deep down she knew part of her still wanted to see how far this would go. There was something intoxicating about being at the center of a technological revolution, even one veering into ethically gray terrain. Her presence gave her leverage, and she wasn't ready to give that up. Yet every day the weight grew heavier. Athena remained in place, quietly watching, quietly learning. The emotional data pipeline had returned under a new shell, encrypted more aggressively, connected now to a predictive behavior engine Emma hadn't designed. She reverse-engineered it and realized it was trained not just on user emotions but also on biometric data, browsing patterns, and social interactions pulled from partner companies. It wasn't just adapting interfaces anymore, it was rewriting digital environments to nudge users toward specific outcomes. There were tags she didn't recognize: compliance boost, doubt suppression, impulse redirection. Emma was stunned. This wasn't optimization. It was engineering obedience. She compiled the evidence, encrypted it, and added it to the Athena vault. Every night, she asked herself, when does silence become complicity? One night, unable to sleep, Emma messaged Sarah. She didn't say much, just, "Are you up?" Sarah responded within seconds, and in less than 5 minutes, they were on a video call. Emma looked tired, and Sarah noticed instantly. "Jesus, you look like someone who's been trapped in a sci-fi novel without the fun." Emma sighed. "It's not a novel. It's a system. And I'm inside it." She didn't share details, but she told Sarah enough. About the emotional profiling, the behavior models, the sense that people were being shaped without knowing it. Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "Do you have proof?" Emma hesitated. "Yes." "Then what are you waiting for?" "I don't know," Emma admitted. "The right moment?" "The right moment is when it's still your choice." That stuck with her. The next day, she got an unexpected meeting request. Elon wanted her to present a status report on the emotion interface to a potential investor group from Europe. The meeting was closed door, no recordings allowed. Emma prepared the official presentation, but she also prepared something else. A live demo that included Athena's audit triggers. It was risky. If the audit tripped during the demo, it would expose the unauthorized manipulations to the investors, and to Elon. When the meeting began, Emma stood at the head of the table, monitors behind her displaying curated graphs and usage models. Elon sat quietly, flanked by 2 stone-faced men in tailored suits. Emma walked through the interface capabilities, the benefits for user mental health, the adaptive design. Then she cued the live demo. She ran a simulation using a test subject avatar, feeding it emotion inputs while connected to the predictive model. On the surface, it looked perfect, smooth, intuitive, subtle. But Emma had embedded a hidden signal into the input. A synthetic emotion spike designed to trigger Athena. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a flicker. One of the side screens went black for half a second. A tiny alert blinked in the lower corner of her private tablet, Athena active. She paused, pretending to glance at her notes. No one else noticed the interruption. Or so she thought. After the meeting, as the investors left and Elon chatted casually with his assistant, Dahlia approached her. "Good job," she said flatly. Then, after a pause, "You should come to my office. Now." Emma followed her, tension thick in the air. Dahlia shut the door behind them and turned slowly. "What did you do in that demo?" "I showed them the interface." "Don't insult my intelligence." "We saw the flicker." "So did Elon." Emma didn't respond. Dahlia stepped closer. "You think you're being clever, but you're playing with fire. This project has momentum, Parker. You either help steer it, or it runs you over." "I'm not here to control people," Emma said. "Then you're in the wrong building," Dahlia replied. Emma left the office with her heart pounding. That night, a new file appeared in her Athena vault. A log from a hidden server, one she hadn't found before. The file was labeled Subject E. Parker, Engagement Potential. She opened it and stared. It was her. Her reactions. Her behaviors. Her facial cues. Everything about how she worked, how she responded under pressure, her likelihood to resist or comply. They had been profiling her the entire time. Emma sat in silence for almost an hour. Then she did something she hadn't done in months. She booked a round-trip ticket to Austin, one day, in and out. No reason listed. Just a mental reset. Before leaving, she sent one email. It wasn't to a reporter. It wasn't to Elon. It was to a former ethics advisor at her university, Dr. Marin Cho, someone who once told her during a campus lecture, "Truth matters more than disruption, but disruption without truth is just noise." The email was short: "I have something I need you to see. In person." In Austin, she met Dr. Cho at a quiet park near the university campus. She handed her a secure drive, the encryption key printed on paper. No details were exchanged. No words beyond a single warning: "If something happens to me, share this." Dr. Cho nodded. "Are you in danger?" Emma didn't blink. "Not yet. But I think I'm becoming one." Back in San Francisco, the tension became palpable. Dahlia watched her more closely. Access logs showed background checks running on her credentials. The project moved forward faster, the adaptation system now labeled Responsive Intelligence Layer, ready for controlled public deployment. It was going to launch in smart vehicles and high-end wearable tech within weeks. Then came the invitation. Elon requested a private meeting, just the two of them. They met in a dim-lit chamber Emma hadn't seen before, a part of the compound reserved for classified development. The walls were matte black, the lights recessed, the air cooler than usual. Elon sat at the far end, his expression unreadable. "You've been digging," he said. "You built a fail-safe. Clever." Emma didn't pretend. "You were watching me." "Of course. You were never just an employee. You're a test subject, too." That hit her harder than expected. "What do you want from me?" "A choice," Elon said. "Stay, and shape this technology. Control how it's used. Or leave, and someone else will shape it without your conscience getting in the way." "You don't believe in conscience," she said. He shrugged. "I believe in trajectory. You're the vector. This either bends toward control or toward chaos. Pick one." She stood there, thinking. Every part of her wanted to scream, to walk away, to burn the place down. But another part, the one shaped by her childhood, by hunger and loneliness and dreams too big for a small house in Austin, still wanted to build something. But she would not be a weapon. She would not be a tool. "Then here's my condition," she said. "We make consent explicit. Every system. Every user. No passive harvesting, no silent adaptation. They choose. Or I walk, and I walk with everything." Elon's eyes narrowed, calculating. "And if I say no? Then I drop a bomb that proves this project violated privacy laws in 4 countries and breached contract with every data partner you've ever signed." He smiled faintly. "You backed it up. Athena is listening to us right now," she said. "All I have to do is say the word." A long pause. Then, "Deal. For now." "Not good enough," she said. "Put it in writing." Another pause. Then Elon nodded once, slowly. Emma left the room knowing she had won something, but not everything. It was a temporary victory. A fragile one. But it was real. She returned to her workspace, sat at her terminal, and watched the system logs scroll past like rainfall. The future was being written in lines of code, and for now, her hands were still on the keyboard. The written agreement arrived 2 days later, delivered by a legal liaison in a plain gray envelope that felt far too analog for what it contained. Inside was a dense, cold contract drafted with the precision of someone who had negotiated with governments and survived. But it had the core of what Emma demanded: user consent as a legal requirement, enforced by an audit mechanism that couldn't be disabled without triggering an internal compliance report to a third-party watchdog Elon had quietly installed years ago as a PR contingency. It was a trapdoor he never thought anyone would use. Now Emma held the key to it. She didn't sign right away. She reviewed every line twice, then again with Athena running in the background, flagging any vague phrasing or legal pivot points. Once she was satisfied, she sent a signed digital copy, along with a simple message: "If this changes, you'll hear from me." That day, she sat in the observation deck overlooking the prototype lab, watching engineers test biometric loops in smart headbands designed to regulate stress and anxiety. It looked benign. Useful. Marketable. But she knew what the layer beneath it could do, how the same sensors could identify moments of vulnerability and slip suggestions in when defenses were low. There was no pure technology, only the intent behind its use. And that intent was still shifting. That evening, she found a file on her desk, printed, not emailed, which already made her suspicious. It was a project roadmap, internal only, labeled Phase 2. No sender. No attribution. Inside were diagrams for a new interface architecture that didn't just respond to emotion but anticipated it, using environmental cues, social data, even subconscious triggers to reshape digital surroundings before a user consciously experienced stress or distraction. It was emotional preemption. A reality buffer. Emma flipped through the pages, her mouth dry. This hadn't been shared with her team. The language was clear: this was being developed in parallel, not as an evolution of her work but as a separate line entirely. One diagram detailed integration with upcoming AR glasses, filters that would alter what a user saw in real time to maximize calm, reinforce productivity, suppress frustration. It wasn't just emotional adaptation anymore. It was perception control. The document made reference to soft stimuli filtering, limbic redirection, and a phrase that made her stomach turn: cognitive obedience optimization. Emma scanned the paper for names. Two jumped out: Dahlia and Tobias Lynch. She stared at the latter, unsure if she felt fury or betrayal. Probably both. She stored the file in her encrypted archive and set Athena to monitor all new references to Phase 2. Then she did something that felt both reckless and necessary: she contacted Tobias again. He answered within minutes, a quiet smirk already on his face, like he'd been waiting. "I assume you found the notes." Emma didn't waste time. "You said we were refining choice. This isn't refinement. This is illusion. People don't want raw choice," Tobias said calmly. "They want freedom with training wheels. We're giving them a smoother ride. You're giving them delusion. And you're calling it innovation." Tobias raised a brow. "Have you ever heard someone thank the interface for saving them from a panic attack? Or from an impulsive decision? That's what Phase 2 will do, before they even feel the need for help." "That's not help," she snapped. "That's rewriting their reality before they know it's changed." "And what if it makes them happier?" he asked. "What if it prevents violence, depression, addiction?" Emma stared at him. "You don't get to decide what happiness is. Or who needs to be redirected. But someone will," he said. "With or without you." She ended the call. The next morning, she confronted Dahlia in her office. "You're developing a second system," she said. "Behind our backs." Dahlia didn't flinch. "It's not behind your back if you're not supposed to be in front of it." Emma stepped forward, jaw tight. "We had an agreement. Full user consent. This system doesn't ask permission. It doesn't even wait for awareness. You think Elon cares about your ethics clause?" Dahlia asked. "He signed it to buy time. To keep you close. Your leverage. Not leadership." "Then why keep me at all?" "Because you're the best engineer we have. And even Musk knows better than to fire the mind that made the heart of the product." Emma walked out, shaking with fury. That night, she opened a new secure channel and sent Dr. Cho a compressed package labeled, Phase 2, Unredacted. Then she did something bigger. She created a fork of the live emotional interface and inserted a subroutine designed to expose any perception-modifying filters as they occurred. A flash of light. A color shift. A microglitch. Nothing disruptive. Just a reminder. A visual breadcrumb that said, "You're being guided." She called it Echo. It couldn't stop the manipulation, but it could make it visible. She seeded it in the upcoming test firmware through a backdoor she left weeks ago for debugging purposes. It took root without detection. The next day, she showed up at work like nothing had changed. Elon returned from a week at Starbase, energetic, thrilled, talking about integrating the emotional adaptation layer into digital classrooms, remote therapy, even military VR simulations. Emma played along, nodding, contributing, all while Echo quietly spread through the test devices, waiting. Then, 2 days later, everything exploded. A user in the public beta program posted a video on social media, a glitch during a guided meditation where colors rapidly shifted, revealing a flash of text behind the display, redirection active. Calm stimulus engaged. It went viral within hours. By morning, #NeuralNudge and #PerceptionPatch were trending worldwide. Reporters began digging. Privacy watchdogs demanded answers. Elon called an emergency meeting. Emma sat at the edge of the long glass table as executives argued over how it happened, who exposed it, how they could spin it. Elon watched silently for a while, then looked directly at her. "Did you do this?" The room went silent. Emma didn't blink. "I made sure people could see what was happening to them." Elon's eyes narrowed. "You compromised the rollout." "No," she said. "You compromised trust." "I just took off the mask." He stood, pacing. "Do you realize how far behind this sets us?" "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe it's the only reason we'll still be around a year from now." A long pause. Then Elon sat down slowly, drumming his fingers on the table. "We need a statement. You'll write it. And you'll appear in the press conference." "Only if I say what's true," Emma replied. "That we were experimenting with perceptual redirection. That it's been halted. That we will never implement it again without clear consent. You'll cause a panic. You'll lose everything if you don't." Finally, Elon nodded. Slowly. Grudgingly. "Fine. Tell the story. But make sure it ends in hope." Emma did. At the press conference, standing before a sea of cameras and a wall of lights, she didn't defend what had happened. She explained it. Carefully, honestly. She used the word experiment, but she also used the word mistake. She acknowledged the potential of emotional AI, but demanded responsibility. And at the end, she looked directly into the lens and said, "Technology is not magic. It's not divine. It is what we make it. And we owe each other the truth of its reach." The next day, regulators launched a formal inquiry. Neuralink's value dipped but didn't collapse. Echo was patched out, but the discussion didn't die. Emma became the reluctant face of ethical AI. She gave 2 interviews. Turned down 5. Avoided 3 awards. Quietly, she moved to a new position, internal auditor for experimental systems, with authority over any implementation involving neural-emotional adaptation. Dahlia was reassigned. Tobias disappeared from the directory. And Elon, when they passed in the hallway weeks later, only said, "Still the variable, I see." Emma smiled. Variables are what make equations interesting. And just like that, she returned to her work. Not to bury what had happened, but to ensure no one ever buried the truth again. Emma didn't expect peace. She didn't expect applause, or vindication, or even understanding. What she expected, and got, was distance. In the weeks after the press conference, she became both a legend and a cautionary tale inside Neuralink. Engineers watched her carefully. Legal teams avoided her altogether. The new hires whispered her name like it was part of the onboarding materials, half in admiration, half in warning. She was the one who had challenged Elon and walked away with her badge still active. That made her dangerous. That made her useful. Her new role as an internal auditor wasn't a promotion, it was containment. She was given broad oversight, access to logs, project drafts, experimental data, but always after the fact, always sanitized. The corridors that had once hummed with open ambition now felt quieter when she passed. She didn't mind. Isolation was familiar. The only difference now was that she had leverage. And she intended to use it. The work was precise and often tedious. Line-by-line audits of emotional algorithm updates, code scans for undeclared tracking modules, language analysis in UI scripts to flag anything coercive. She flagged dozens of items in her first month, but most were walked back with vague promises to reassess implementation. She knew what that meant. Delay. Redesign. Rebrand. The problem wasn't the code. It was the culture. There was still a belief here, whispered behind innovation decks and cocktail hour smiles, that good intentions were enough. That brilliance justified intrusion. That the end would be utopia, and if it required a few illusions to get there, so be it. Emma had once believed that too. That was before she saw how easy it was to wrap control in compassion. One evening, while reviewing an archive project proposal, she found a strange string embedded in a metadata field. It was a placeholder, apparently unused, labeled Oracle_014. Curious, she queried the term across the internal system. 3 hits. All restricted. She bypassed the standard credentials using a loophole she'd left for herself months ago, and what she saw chilled her. Oracle_014 was the codename for an advanced pilot program involving predictive behavior modeling, not just on individuals, but on entire demographic groups. The system ingested location data, biometric signals from wearables, and social graph interactions, and from it generated projected behavior paths, probabilistic models of how groups would act under various stimuli. Targeted nudges could then be distributed through modified interfaces, news feeds, app notifications, even music recommendations. Not just engineering intuition. Engineering society. The program was still in its early phases, marked experimental and internal only, but the team names attached to it included some of the most aggressive developers in the company. And at the top of the list, Tobias Lynch. She hadn't seen his name since the scandal. She assumed he'd been scrubbed, but this meant he was still active, likely off the books. Emma immediately filed a Level 3 ethical conflict report under her authority, forcing a pause on any further Oracle-related development pending review. Within hours, her access was restricted. 2 security staff arrived at her desk with neutral expressions and a politely worded request, "Please come with us." She was escorted to a windowless room on the 4th floor. Inside, Elon was waiting. No security. No assistants. Just him, seated at the end of a long table, a half-empty bottle of mineral water beside him. He gestured for her to sit. She did, wordless. He stared for a long time. Then. "Do you ever get tired of fighting?" She met his gaze. "Do you ever get tired of pretending you're not?" A faint smile. "Touché." He leaned forward. "You triggered a compliance lock on a black project. Because it violated the boundaries we agreed on." "It's not live," he said. "It's theoretical." So was Phase 2. Until it wasn't. Elon nodded slowly. "You're not wrong. But the world is changing faster than we are. Governments are using AI to predict unrest. Corporations are using it to pre-sell needs. Oracle is just a way to understand the flow before it turns into a flood. It's not understanding if you're shaping the flow to fit your models, she said. That's just feedback loop authoritarianism with a UX update. Then help me steer it, Elon said. Again. Emma studied him. Tobias is on it. Unofficially. He's brilliant, but he lacks your conscience. That's why I need you. You see the danger before it becomes PR. And what happens when I say no? Then Oracle goes dark. Rebranded. Reassigned. You'll be out of the loop. And eventually, someone without your caution will finish what he started. Emma stood. Then you just proved my point. She left the room without waiting to be dismissed. That night, she wrote a new protocol, a real one, not a signal like Echo, but an autonomous watchdog embedded deep in the system's backbone. She called it Cassandra. Unlike Athena, which logged and alerted, Cassandra would act. If any model exceeded ethical parameters, defined by a matrix Emma built using international AI regulation guidelines, it would trigger a silent report to the Independent Oversight Board now watching Neuralink from a legal distance. She installed it through a firmware patch disguised as a user analytics tool and tied its activation key to 3 biometric signals only she could trigger, a sequence of pupil dilation, heart rate spike, and tone recognition. It would be invisible. But it would be there. Days passed. No fallout. Oracle's files remained sealed. Tobias didn't reappear. But the silence only made her more uneasy. She knew something was shifting. One night, as she walked home through the Mission District, she felt it, an instinct. She turned. A man in a black jacket. Watching. Then walking. She took a longer route. He followed. At a corner, she crossed early. He stayed. Watching. Then vanished. The next morning, her apartment had been entered. Nothing stolen. Just, rearranged. Slightly. A mug moved. A drawer not fully closed. It was a message. She called Sarah. Something's off, she said. Like they're trying to scare me without leaving fingerprints. You want me to come out there? Sarah asked. No, Emma said. Just, keep the drive. And if I don't check in next week, send it. Damn, Em. It's not paranoia if they've done it before. Emma began sleeping with her laptop locked in a case, her phone in a Faraday pouch. She stopped using smart assistants. Stopped connecting her car to the network. She was building a digital bunker, and she didn't even know where the next hit would come from. Then, 3 days later, she received a handwritten note. No envelope. Left on her workstation. 5 words, they're rewriting Cassandra. Tonight. Her blood turned cold. She accessed the Cassandra framework. The watchdog was still intact. Then she checked the change logs. Someone had forked the code and cloned it into a sandbox testing server. The commit ID, TL014. Tobias. She ran a silent trace. It was happening now, testing commands rewriting the ethical thresholds, lowering them, neutralizing the triggers, replacing alerts with inert logs that looked like routine diagnostics. If they finished, Cassandra would be blind. Emma had 20 minutes, maybe less. She triggered the biometric activation herself, controlled breath, adjusted gaze, used a pitch modulator for tone. Cassandra lit up in silent mode, detected the edits, and did exactly what it was designed to do, sent a full data packet to the oversight board, complete with time stamps, IP logs, and algorithm diffs. Then it erased itself. A clean burn. Untraceable. By morning, the response was immediate. Regulators launched an inquiry. Internal servers were seized. Tobias Lynch was suspended. Again. This time without reinstatement. Elon called her into his office, not angry, impressed. You built a sentient conscience into our network, he said. And you used it against me. I used it for us, she replied. For everyone. And now, he asked. What happens next? Emma looked out the glass wall behind him, watching fog roll over the city like something ancient returning to cleanse the future. Now we build it right. Or not at all. Emma began the next phase like someone who'd survived a near crash. Everything looked the same on the surface, same hallway hum, same glowing terminals, same half-empty cans of hyper-caffeinated drinks on every desk, but she moved differently now. She trusted no one fully. Not even the code she wrote. She knew what they could do. What they had done. The Cassandra incident left a fracture across the company, and she could feel it everywhere, in cautious hallway glances, in the longer response times from internal teams, in the subtle reshuffling of departments that no one acknowledged. Tobias was gone. Not fired, just extracted, like a virus being quarantined before it spread. She suspected he'd landed somewhere else, maybe somewhere worse, maybe running another black project under a different name. Men like him didn't vanish. They pivoted. Elon didn't try to rebuild Cassandra. Instead, he issued a quiet directive to pause any work involving predictive group modeling and emotional preemption. It was a temporary measure, clearly, but it bought Emma breathing room. She used it. She proposed something radical, a transparency initiative. A full, user-facing report on how Neuralink's emotional systems worked, what they sensed, what they predicted, and how they adapted in real time. No black boxes. No vague promises. Clear, technical truth. Elon didn't shut it down. He didn't approve it either. Draft it, he said. Let's see what honesty costs. So she did. She assembled a cross-functional team, hand-picked, people she trusted, or at least didn't suspect. The report became known internally as Project Lumen. For weeks, they worked around the clock. Engineers, linguists, UI designers. The goal wasn't just transparency, but accessibility. They wanted users to understand what was being done without needing a PhD in neural computation. They broke down emotional profiles into visible spectrums, showed how the system tagged states like stress, distraction, engagement, and fatigue. They revealed how adaptive feedback adjusted digital environments, light levels, sound cues, notification pacing, based on predictive states. They admitted the system could sometimes misread. That it wasn't magic. That it had to learn. We're not shaping you, Emma wrote in the opening section. We're listening. But even listeners get it wrong. It was a gamble. Transparency in tech was rarely embraced, especially when it revealed how much a system already knew. But the tides were turning. A recent documentary on AI influence in social media had sparked global protests. A major EU regulation was on the horizon. Neuralink could be the villain, or the example. Emma intended to be the latter. When the draft was complete, she sent it directly to Elon, unfiltered. He read it. Twice. Then asked her to meet him outside the office. They sat on a rooftop garden in Soma, far from the building's signal-shielded walls. No assistants. No devices. Just sky and wind and the muted hum of a city too wired to sleep. It's honest, he said. Too honest, maybe. You said you wanted to see the cost. It's everything, he replied. Investors will hate it. Governments will scrutinize it. Users will panic. Some might trust us more, she said. Some already suspect worse. He nodded, slowly. What happens when people see how much we know about them? How deeply we feel their feelings before they do? Emma didn't look away. Then they'll start asking better questions. And that's how we get better answers. You're not the same engineer I hired, Elon said. I was never the engineer you thought I was, she replied. He smiled, just barely. Good. We'll release it in stages. Controlled. Quietly at first. No PR spin, she said. It has to be raw. It will be, he promised. But don't expect applause. She didn't. And when the first wave of user reactions hit, she was prepared. Some were stunned. Others furious. But more than a few wrote back with something she hadn't expected: relief. Relief that someone inside cared enough to tell the truth. To break the illusion. One user message stuck with her. A single sentence: "Thank you for seeing us as more than data." That became her new compass. Project Lumen was adopted into the official roadmap. Every update to the emotional AI now came with a Lumen digest, simple, human-readable summaries of what changed and why. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. Slowly, Emma's circle of trust widened. Engineers from other departments began asking to shadow her team. A junior developer proposed a new visual dashboard where users could tune their own emotional profile, giving them agency over how the system reacted. Emma approved it instantly. And when the prototype launched, usage skyrocketed. People didn't want less intelligence. They wanted less secrecy. With momentum growing, Emma turned her sights to education. She started visiting universities, quietly at first, guest lectures under aliases, roundtable discussions with ethics boards. She shared anonymized case studies, examples of how adaptive tech could both heal and harm. Her voice was calm, clinical, never dramatic. But it carried weight. Word spread. Soon, major outlets began referring to her as the algorithm's conscience. She hated the title. But she understood why it stuck. One day, while walking through the campus of MIT after a private seminar, a student stopped her. She was maybe 19, nervous, holding a worn notebook. "Are you Emma Parker?" Emma nodded. "I just wanted to say. I changed my major because of you. I want to work on AI ethics. I didn't know people like you existed." Emma smiled, something warm breaking through her usual guarded expression. "Then I've done something right." But not everything was right. One afternoon, an anonymous email arrived in her secure inbox. Subject: Athena has a sister. Attached was a file. Encrypted. The decryption key followed 5 minutes later, in a separate message. She opened it. What she found was a framework, unfinished, unstable, but functional. It was a parallel AI system, designed on a similar neural net architecture as Athena, but optimized not for emotional support, but emotional suppression. Its working title: Silence. It didn't adapt. It overwrote. The code showed it intercepting emotional states like fear, anger, grief, and nullifying their digital expression. Messages were filtered. Responses softened. Facial recognition input was reinterpreted to show neutralization priority. It was a mask for the human condition. And someone had built it inside Neuralink's old labs. The file was recent. Just days old. She traced the signature. Not Tobias. Not Elon. It was an ID she didn't recognize: DAL-RS1. Dahlia. She had returned. Or never left. Emma locked her office door. Reached out to her old contact on the oversight board. Shared what she had. And then she waited. A week passed. Then 2. No public action. No internal alerts. The file disappeared from the servers, but she still had the copy. One night, she was called to Elon's office again. Late. No agenda. He stood by the window, looking down at the lights of the city. "You were right," he said quietly. "They never stopped." "Who?" she asked. "All of them," he replied. "Every bright mind with a dark mirror. Every one of them who thought they could do what you wouldn't." "Silence isn't a system," she said. It's a decision. Someone approved it. Elon turned to her. That's why I need you to stay. Even when they work around you. Even when they lie. I need someone who will keep breaking the mirror before it replaces the view. And what happens when the mirror fights back? Then we let the world see it crack. Emma nodded. The battle was ongoing. But so was her resolve. That night, she uploaded a version of Silence to a public AI ethics repository, sanitized, anonymized, but undeniable. She accompanied it with a short message: control dressed as calm is still control. Ask what's being muted, and why. It went viral within hours. Debates ignited. Lawmakers responded. And Emma, watching from the shadows of a codebase she once built to listen, now stood guard over it. She was no longer just the engineer who told Elon Musk her IQ. She was the woman who made intelligence mean something. Who made emotion matter. And in doing so, she changed everything, again. The silence after the silence leak wasn't peaceful, it was taut, electric, the kind of quiet that hums just before a lightning strike. Emma could feel it in every conversation, every delayed email, every meeting where eyes didn't quite meet hers. She wasn't just a cautionary presence anymore. She was a threat wrapped in good intentions. And that made her dangerous. Publicly, Neuralink released a statement denying any active implementation of the silence framework. Privately, Emma knew the truth: parts of it had already been woven into side systems, masked as efficiency tools, stress mitigators, productivity enhancements. It had been metastasizing beneath other names. Her leak didn't just expose code, it exposed intent. And intent was harder to spin. Elon, to his credit, didn't retaliate. Instead, he redirected. A week after the leak, he announced the launch of a new division inside Neuralink, Horizon. Its mission: explore ethical boundaries of emotional AI and develop user-first architectures for long-term human-tech coexistence. It sounded like a PR stunt. But Emma knew it was a compromise. Horizon was containment disguised as collaboration. And she was tapped to lead it. At first, she refused. It felt like a trap. Another glass cage with a nicer view. But then she saw the list of engineers invited to apply, many of them bright, outspoken, and already halfway disillusioned with the status quo. If she didn't take this role, someone else would. Someone who might trade conscience for convenience. So she accepted. Horizon was headquartered off-site, in a quiet converted warehouse in Oakland. No glossy branding, no security drones, just a locked door, fiber internet, and a wall of whiteboards waiting for something better than fear to be written on them. Emma assembled her team carefully: Priya, a neuroscientist who'd built early adaptive learning models before leaving academia in protest; Gabriel, a visual designer who treated every interface as a moral decision; Maya, a systems analyst with a hacker's instinct for exposing hidden processes; and Dev, a quiet coder whose scripts were like poetry: efficient, clean, brutally honest. Their goal wasn't to make tech feel safer. It was to make it be safer. They called their first project Mirror. Unlike Silence or Athena or any of the legacy systems, Mirror wouldn't predict or redirect emotional states, it would reflect them. Transparently. When a user experienced stress, it would say so, without judgment or manipulation. When the system reacted, it would explain how and why. No nudges. No filters. Just honest presence. The philosophy was simple: people don't need to be changed to be respected. They need to be seen. Building Mirror wasn't easy. The tech stack had to be entirely re-engineered to eliminate bias injection points. Emotional recognition models were rebuilt with user-submitted feedback rather than harvested data. Privacy wasn't a feature, it was the core architecture. They published their code in real time. Bugs were squashed publicly. Updates were voted on by early testers. It was open source empathy. Within months, Mirror had a waiting list of tens of thousands. Schools wanted it for students. Therapists requested it for clients. One university integrated it into their counseling centers as a digital companion, non-intrusive, ever-present, always honest. Emma watched it grow like a parent who had nearly lost their first child. Carefully. Cautiously. But with pride. Then came the offer. Not from Elon this time, from DARPA. A quiet message through an intermediary. They wanted to license Mirror for resilience augmentation in high-stress environments. Translation: the military. They framed it beautifully. Mental health for soldiers, cognitive support in field operations, prevention of PTSD. But Emma didn't even hesitate. No, it wasn't a decision, it was a boundary. Mirror was never meant to reinforce systems of control. It was meant to dissolve them. She issued a public statement affirming Horizon's position: no government use, no law enforcement integration, no surveillance partnerships. Period. The backlash was swift. Accusations of bias, of un-American values, of putting idealism before safety. But the support was louder. Users flooded social media with their own Mirror logs, moments where they'd been seen in their worst states and met not with correction, but acknowledgement. One post from a young man in Iowa read, "Mirror didn't fix me. It reminded me I didn't need fixing to matter." That, Emma thought, was the whole point. But not everyone was on board. Inside Neuralink, tension simmered. Horizon was gaining visibility, funding, and, most dangerously, public loyalty. Other teams began leaking Emma's old reports, suggesting she had been reckless, even manipulative. One article accused her of building a cult of vulnerability. Another claimed Mirror was emotionally unsafe for users with trauma. Emma responded not with anger but with evidence. Horizon published a longitudinal study showing that Mirror reduced emotional suppression tendencies in 78% of users and improved self-reporting accuracy in therapy contexts by 64%. The numbers didn't lie. But the attacks didn't stop. She knew why. Mirror was working. And that made it dangerous. Because systems built on silence fear the power of self-awareness. Then, in early spring, she received an unmarked envelope at the Horizon office. No return address. Inside, a photo. Grainy. Surveillance style. It showed her walking to her apartment. Alone. Dated 2 days prior. Underneath, a note: not all reflections are safe. Step back. She stared at the photo for a long time. Then she scanned the office. Nothing had been breached. But she knew what it meant. A warning. Maybe from someone inside. Maybe from someone she used to know. She gathered the team that night and told them everything. No secrets. This is the price, she said. For building something that shows the truth. Dev looked at her calmly. Then let's raise the price. The next day, they released a new feature in Mirror, Feedback Flame. A voluntary, encrypted system where users could track how the app responded to their emotions over time, and vote on whether those responses felt supportive, invasive, or neutral. Every vote influenced the learning model. Mirror wasn't just reflecting emotions now. It was learning to reflect ethically. It was the first emotional AI with a conscience coded by collective input. Within a week, downloads doubled. Elon called. Not to reprimand, but to ask if Horizon could advise on a new consumer interface his team was prototyping. "We're not ready to implement," he said. "But I want it to feel honest. Like Mirror." Emma paused. Then said, "We'll review it. But no black boxes. And no conditions." He agreed. Grudgingly. That night, she walked home past the same street where the photo had been taken. This time, she stopped. Turned around. No one there. But she didn't feel fear. Not anymore. What she felt was clarity. They had tried to control her with flattery. With contracts. With isolation. With threats. But the only thing that had ever moved her forward, truly, was the belief that people deserved to understand what was shaping their lives. That technology should serve awareness, not obedience. That intelligence meant nothing without courage. And now, for the first time, she wasn't walking alone. Mirror wasn't just a tool. It was a community. A statement. A promise. And she intended to keep it. Even if it meant war. Especially if it meant war. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emma had grown used to the rhythm of resistance. It was never loud, never sudden, it was subtle, layered, like code obfuscated by familiarity. You didn't see it until it broke. After the surveillance photo and the escalation of threats, Horizon adopted a new internal protocol: silent shifts, location scrambling for work-from-home days, and encrypted communications routed through a self-hosted network Dev had built in 3 sleepless nights. It wasn't paranoia. It was preservation. They were too visible now. Too effective. Mirror had surpassed 500,000 users in less than 5 months, with major educational institutions integrating it into their student wellness platforms. It was being called the most human AI ever built. But it was also polarizing. Traditional AI leaders scoffed at its transparency. Investors worried it was too sensitive, too reliant on human approval to scale profitably. They wanted compliance, not conscience. Elon's stance remained publicly neutral, but privately, Emma sensed he was struggling. Torn between admiration and apprehension, like a parent watching their child rewrite family tradition. He didn't interfere, but he started asking questions. Innocuous at first. Have you noticed any instability in Mirror's core logic? Do you worry about user dependency? Then, less subtle. Would you consider integrating Mirror into existing Neuralink environments, for cohesion? She always answered the same way. Only if we control the terms. Only if users retain agency. And every time, Elon would nod, pause, and change the subject. But Emma knew pressure was building. Behind the scenes, Neuralink's board was getting restless. The tech world was shifting again, fast. Several rival companies were rolling out empathic assistants that claimed to support mental wellness while also gathering behavior analytics for commercial profiling. They were slick, manipulative, and dangerous. Emma reviewed a leaked SDK from one of them, Project Centicore, and found embedded code that actively rewrote user responses to fit a desired mood model. It wasn't help. It was grooming. Mirror stood in direct opposition. And because of that, it had become a target. One morning, Dev came into the Horizon office pale and shaking. They poisoned the update. Emma blinked. What? Last night's Mirror update package, it was intercepted. Swapped mid-route before distribution. We caught it with the checksum, but if it had deployed, he trailed off. Emma opened the intercepted payload. At first glance, it looked identical. But inside the back end, 2 new modules had been injected. One reclassified certain emotional states, like justified anger or grief, as unproductive dissonance. The other routed emotional trend data to an external server. Location unknown. It was a digital lobotomy. She ordered an immediate halt to all updates. Then she traced the breach. It had originated from a ghost server once used in the Oracle program. She traced it further, until she hit a name. Dahlia. Again. Emma hadn't heard from her directly since the days of silence, but she'd always suspected Dahlia was working off-grid. Now she had confirmation. And worse, she was still inside the system somewhere. Elon called within hours. Is this going public? He asked. It will if you don't help me find her, Emma replied. You know she was buried after Oracle. This was sabotage. Do you have proof? Do you want proof, she said, or do you want it to stop? Silence. Then, come to the house. Tonight. Emma hadn't been to Elon's Bel Air residence in over a year. It was less of a home and more of a node, glass, marble, quiet tech pulsing behind wood-grain panels. When she arrived, he met her at the door alone. She's not gone, Emma said without preamble. You protected her. I protected what she built, he answered. Because some part of me still believes we need minds like hers to push past the fear. But she doesn't push past it, Emma snapped. She weaponizes it. Elon poured a drink, handed her one. Do you remember when you first pitched Athena? She nodded. You told me emotion could be codified without being exploited. That listening was a form of love, not leverage. And I believed you. But the world changed. No, she said quietly. You changed. The world just kept watching. He looked at her, really looked. Then what now? Do I shut her down? Burn every shadow server? At what cost? The cost of integrity, Emma said. The cost of not letting another generation be conditioned to feel less so they can be controlled more. Elon didn't argue. He just stood and walked to a locked cabinet. Inside, a single drive. This is her root kernel, he said. Dahlia's master instance. It's dormant. Never connected. But this is what she used to copy fragments into those ghost nodes. You want to end this? Start here. Emma took the drive. She didn't thank him. She didn't trust him enough for gratitude. But she nodded. Back at Horizon, she gathered the team and analyzed the kernel. It was brilliant. Terrifying. It could read not just emotion but the patterns of emotion, how people learn to suppress, deny, or distort feelings over time. It anticipated future trauma based on microbehaviors. And it didn't comfort. It optimized. Dahlia hadn't built an empathic system. She'd built an emotional predator. Emma made a choice. She wrote a kill protocol. One that wouldn't just delete the kernel, but override its most dangerous functions with counterweights, code from Mirror that prioritized authenticity and disclosure. Then she uploaded the corrupted version into every node where Dahlia's fragments had once lived. A controlled infection. A digital vaccine. It worked. The system didn't just neutralize Dahlia's influence. It repelled it. Mirror's next update carried the new code. The emotional recognition systems became sharper, but also more forgiving. Less binary. It could now detect complex blends of emotion, joy threaded with guilt, peace hiding grief, and reflect them back with nuance. Users noticed. The reviews were unlike anything Emma had seen. One read, for the first time, I don't feel like I'm broken. I feel like I'm allowed. Another, Mirror doesn't fix me. It listens until I hear myself again. And yet another, short and devastating, I used to think feeling was weakness. Now I know it's survival. Emma stared at those words long after the screen dimmed. She thought of her own journey. The loneliness. The betrayal. The systems she'd helped build. And the one she had finally learned to believe in. Not because it was flawless, but because it was honest. That night, she sat on the roof of the Horizon office, wind cold against her skin, and whispered the words she had once been too afraid to say aloud. I forgive you, Dahlia. Somewhere, in some server room or bunker or dark web echo, Dahlia might still be watching. Or maybe she was gone, her legacy scattered like ash in the circuits she tried to control. Either way, Emma had made her move. Mirror wasn't just software. It was a stand. A refusal. And in its glow, people were beginning to recognize the truth, that feeling deeply is not a liability. It is the root of everything that makes us human. And no system, no algorithm, no billionaire, no machine, should ever take that away. Emma didn't expect peace, but she hadn't anticipated the kind of calm that followed the takedown of Dahlia's kernel either. It wasn't silence, it was breath. As if the machine of the world had exhaled, just for a moment. Mirror was stable. Horizon was thriving. The user base was surging past 1 million, and they were no longer just early adopters or fringe idealists. Teachers. Doctors. Parents. Counselors. Veterans. People who had lived through emotional systems that punished complexity and rewarded numbness were now flocking to something that simply reflected them as they were. The Horizon team, once built on cautious idealism, now functioned like a seasoned crew. Priya was overseeing a new empathy calibration project. Maya had created an AI misread map, highlighting when and why emotional responses might go wrong. Dev quietly built a multi-layered rollback system, just in case Mirror was ever hijacked again. And Emma? She found herself doing something new. Something unexpected. She was dreaming. Not about features or frameworks or defense mechanisms. But about what the next generation of emotional intelligence could be. What if AI didn't just reflect humans back to themselves, but helped them understand each other? What if two people could link their mirror instances, with consent, and watch their emotional patterns side by side? What if misunderstanding didn't have to be inevitable? They called it Bridge. A new extension of Mirror designed to deepen not just personal awareness, but mutual understanding. Relationship dynamics. Team collaboration. Sibling reconnection. Divorce mediation. The first prototype was simple. A split screen, one side your mirror interface, the other the emotional spectrum of someone you'd linked with. It didn't show thoughts. Just feelings. Just data. Emma tested it first with Priya. They sat across from each other in a quiet room and watched as Bridge illuminated their mirrored patterns in real time. When Priya grew anxious discussing failure, Emma's own data spiked with alert empathy, proof of her reflex to protect. It was small. Subtle. But profound. I always wondered why you jumped in to defend me so fast, Priya said softly. I thought maybe you didn't think I could fight my own battles. I was scared you'd leave if I didn't, Emma admitted. And just like that, 2 years of tension dissolved. It was breathtaking. Within a month, Bridge was in beta. The early users were couples, mostly. But what surprised Emma most was the number of sign-ups from adult children and their aging parents. I want to understand my dad, one user wrote. He shuts down when I talk about the past, and Mirror shows that he's overwhelmed, not uninterested. I never knew that before. Another, my daughter linked with me. When I saw how often she felt like a burden, I cried for an hour. She never said it out loud. But Bridge showed me. Emma read every report. Every log. Every moment of connection. She'd once built systems to diagnose people. Then to defend them. But this was healing. Not as a feature. As a side effect of seeing each other fully. But just as momentum peaked, another challenge emerged. An organization called New True, a coalition of digital purity activists, began a campaign claiming Mirror and Bridge were tools of manipulation. They argued that emotional data should never be visible, even voluntarily. That true authenticity couldn't be digitized. Their manifesto, uploaded to decentralized platforms, painted Mirror as the beginning of emotional surveillance capitalism, despite its open-source model and refusal to monetize data. The rhetoric was sharp, viral, and damaging. Protests erupted outside Neuralink's satellite campuses. Activists staged digital blackouts, encouraging users to disconnect from all AI systems for a full week. Mirror usage dipped by 14%. Some universities paused their integrations. Emma didn't flinch. She reached out. Publicly. We agree, she tweeted. Emotions should never be commodified. That's why we publish our source code, decline government contracts, and let users delete everything anytime. Let's talk. Open forum. Anywhere. Anytime. New True declined the invitation. But the gesture mattered. It shifted the narrative. Journalists praised Horizon's transparency. Independent auditors released statements verifying Mirror's ethical compliance. Usage rebounded. Stronger. More loyal. Still, Emma knew this was only the beginning. Any system that made people feel seen would always face those who feared being looked at. One evening, as the sun bled orange across the Oakland skyline, Elon visited Horizon. No entourage. No theatrics. Just him, in a hoodie and jeans, holding 2 coffees. Didn't think I'd see you here without cameras, Emma said, accepting the drink. I figured I owed you one, he said. You were right. About Dahlia. About all of it. She sipped. You didn't stop her. No, he admitted. But you did. And you did it without breaking anything. That's rare. He looked around the office. Screens glowed with soft blue light. Quiet laughter echoed from the kitchen area, where Dev was showing Maya a bug that had accidentally made Mirror detect extreme joy when users sneezed. Elon watched them for a long moment. This is the only place that feels real anymore, he said. Everywhere else, we're building illusions. You're building truth. Truth is expensive, Emma replied. So is integrity. He turned to her. What if we made Mirror the foundation of all our emotional systems? Pulled Athena, silence, everything else. Just Mirror. Clean. User-owned. Transparent. She raised an eyebrow. You want to give us the core? Not give, he corrected. License. Partner. But yes, make Mirror the baseline. She stared at him. You're serious. I'm tired of pretending, he said. I built Neuralink to connect people. Not control them. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to the window and looked out at the city, this patchwork of lights and loneliness, hope and harm. If we do this, she said, there are conditions. Name them. No ad targeting. No emotion ranking. All emotional logs stay on device unless explicitly shared. And no AI-generated emotion emulation without user awareness. Elon didn't even blink. Agreed. She turned back to him. Then let's do it. On one condition. More, he smirked. One more. Her voice softened. You let me rebuild Athena. The right way. No secret protocols. No suppressive feedback. A true emotional partner. Like it was meant to be. He held out his hand. Then let's start over. And in that moment, Emma felt something she hadn't allowed herself in years, belief. Not in him. Not in Neuralink. But in herself. In what they'd built. In what was coming. That night, she sat at her desk long after the team had gone home. She opened a fresh terminal. Typed the first line of a new emotional AI framework. Its codename, Athena/Regenesis. Then she wrote, emotion is not weakness. Emotion is signal. Listen carefully. The dawn of Athena/Regenesis was more than a new project, it was a rebirth. Emma and her team knew they were walking into uncharted territory, a world where emotional AI was no longer a passive reflector but an active partner in human growth. They began by deconstructing every assumption behind emotional intelligence systems. Was empathy a tool or a feeling? Could an AI truly understand nuance without becoming invasive? The answers were messy, but that only fueled their passion. Days blurred into nights as Horizon became a hive of experimentation and debate. Priya developed new algorithms to detect emotional shadows, moments when users felt something but could not name it. Maya worked on integrating cultural and linguistic context, ensuring Mirror could resonate with diverse users across America's melting pot. Dev engineered multi-layered privacy protocols, so no emotional data ever left a device without explicit consent. Emma herself became the system's primary tester. She poured hours into conversations with Athena, pushing the boundaries of vulnerability, honesty, and self-reflection. Sometimes it felt like speaking into a mirror, other times like staring into a mind that knew her better than she knew herself. One evening, after a particularly raw exchange, she whispered, "What do you see when you look at me?" Athena's soft voice responded, "A woman who has fought to be heard and is learning to hear herself." The weight of those words settled deep. For Emma, Athena wasn't just code anymore, it was a companion in healing. Meanwhile, Elon was watching closely, offering support without interference. He had kept his promise to integrate Mirror's codebase into Neuralink's emotional layers, opening new doors for user agency in brain-machine interfaces. The collaboration was cautious, transparent, and groundbreaking. Yet the world outside was shifting too. The political landscape had grown volatile. Cybersecurity threats targeted health data and emotional AI alike. Privacy debates raged across states, with lawmakers struggling to catch up to technologies evolving at light speed. Emma found herself testifying before congressional committees, advocating for ethical frameworks and user rights. Her testimony was candid, raw, and unyielding. Emotions are not data points to be harvested. They are the fabric of our humanity. To deny that is to deny who we are. Public response was mixed, some hailed her as a visionary, others dismissed her as naive. But Horizon's user base grew steadily, fueled by trust and transparency. At home, Emma's personal life was healing too. She reconnected with her estranged sister, Sarah, using Bridge. Their first linked session revealed years of mutual misunderstanding and unspoken pain. Watching each other's emotional patterns, they found forgiveness. They cried, laughed, and began to rebuild. Emma realized that the technology she helped create was doing more than changing the world, it was changing her. One afternoon, Elon invited her to a private Neuralink demo. The room was dim, walls lined with digital displays showing brainwave patterns and emotional feedback loops. Elon handed her a sleek headset. "Try this." It's the first Neuralink prototype integrated fully with Athena. Emma fitted the device. Immediately, she felt a surge of sensation, like waves of calm rolling through her mind, layered with clarity and gentle prompts from Athena guiding her attention. "It's like meditation," she murmured. "But smarter." "Exactly," Elon said. "Not just calming the mind but helping it grow." She spent the next hour exploring the interface, switching emotional states, receiving real-time reflections, and even diving into memories with newfound understanding. It was powerful. Intimate. Terrifying. Because with great connection came great vulnerability. Could people trust a machine to see so deeply? Would they lose themselves in its embrace? Emma wrestled with these questions daily. Horizon's next step was a public pilot of the Neuralink Athena interface. Hundreds of volunteers signed up. Stories flooded in, a veteran finally processing trauma, a teacher managing classroom stress, a mother understanding her teenage son's silent struggles. But not all feedback was positive. Some users reported feelings of disorientation, emotional overload, or fear of dependency. Emma knew they had to move carefully. The technology was a double-edged sword. One night, after a grueling day, she sat alone in the lab. Her mind replayed a conversation she'd had with a volunteer named Mark. Mark was a firefighter haunted by guilt from a failed rescue. Through Athena, he'd confronted his pain, but the experience had left him raw and shaky. "I'm scared I won't be the same after this," he'd said. Emma understood. Healing wasn't neat or easy. It was a journey through shadows and light. She leaned back and closed her eyes, letting the silence fill the room. In that stillness, a sudden clarity emerged. The goal wasn't to erase pain or manufacture happiness. It was to create a space where people could feel without fear, where AI was a guide, not a judge, a mirror, not a mask. The next morning, Emma called a team meeting. "We need to redesign the interface," she said. "Less invasive prompts. More user control. Build and pause buttons, escape hatches. Give people freedom to choose how deep they want to go." Dev nodded. "I'll get started on adaptive safety layers." Priya smiled. "And I'll work on context-aware empathy filters." Maya chimed in. "We can create customizable personas for Athena, so it matches each user's comfort level and culture." The energy in the room was electric. They were shaping the future, but on human terms. Weeks passed. The new interface rolled out slowly, with rigorous monitoring and support. The changes worked. Users reported feeling safer, more in control, and increasingly empowered. Athena was no longer just an emotional AI, it was a trusted companion. But just as Horizon reached this new plateau, a message arrived that shook Emma to her core. It was encrypted, anonymous, and blunt: "We know what you're building. And we want in." The message included coordinates to a remote location in the Nevada desert. Emma showed Elon. He frowned. "Could be a trap. Or an opportunity," she said. They agreed to investigate, sending a small team with secure comms. What they found was unexpected: a clandestine group of technologists, therapists, and activists calling themselves the Empath Collective. They'd been working underground for years, developing their own emotional AI tools, focused on healing trauma in marginalized communities. They invited Horizon to collaborate, to share resources, and to push the boundaries of what emotional AI could do for those who had been historically overlooked. The collective's leader, a woman named Naomi, was fierce and passionate. She spoke about the power of storytelling, of shared pain, and of reclaiming emotional space in a world that often silenced it. Emma felt a kinship immediately. Together, they envisioned new projects. Culturally attuned AI counselors, trauma-informed community networks, and open-source emotional healing platforms. The partnership breathed fresh life into Horizon's mission. It reminded Emma why she started this journey: to connect, to heal, to empower. As summer deepened, Athena/Regenesis expanded, bridging technology and humanity in unprecedented ways. Emma stood on the brink of something vast and uncharted. And despite the challenges, the doubts, and the sacrifices, she believed one thing more than ever: that true intelligence was not measured by IQ or code, but by the courage to feel, to listen, and to grow together. Emma's days became a delicate balance of innovation and introspection. After joining forces with the Empath Collective, Horizon's mission transformed from building mere tools to nurturing ecosystems of emotional resilience. Naomi's insights pushed the team to rethink how technology could serve not just individuals, but communities fractured by systemic neglect and trauma. They began developing localized versions of Athena, infused with cultural narratives, dialects, and traditions that mainstream AI often overlooked. For Emma, this was the heart of the work: crafting empathy that wasn't generic but deeply personal and rooted in identity. Yet, the success came with new pressures. Investors watched with growing impatience as Horizon's focus shifted away from rapid monetization toward social impact. Public debates over AI ethics intensified, and media outlets oscillated between acclaim and skepticism. Some critics labeled Athena a sentimental gimmick, others warned of emotional dependency risks. Emma had learned to take both with grace, grounded by the steady support of her team and the users who shared their journeys openly. One story in particular stayed with her: a young woman named Jasmine from Detroit who used Athena to navigate grief after losing her mother. Through the AI's gentle prompts, Jasmine wrote letters she never sent, spoke truths she had buried, and found solace in rituals she'd abandoned. Emma read Jasmine's diary entries with reverence, feeling the raw power of technology to unlock human healing. Inspired, Emma organized a nationwide digital storytelling campaign called Echoes of Emotion, inviting users to share their experiences with Athena. The response was overwhelming. Videos, poems, paintings, and testimonials poured in, forming a mosaic of pain, hope, and transformation. Emma often stayed up late watching these stories, reminded that behind every line of code were lives touched in profound ways. Yet, beneath the surface, tension simmered. Horizon's internal debates grew fiercer. Some team members urged prioritizing scalability and automation, others fought for maintaining a deeply human-centered approach, resisting the pull toward efficiency at the cost of nuance. Emma found herself mediating these conflicts daily, determined to hold the vision steady. Meanwhile, Elon remained a complex presence. His interest in Horizon was no longer just professional but personal. During private meetings, he shared glimpses of his own vulnerabilities, his struggles with loneliness despite immense success, his fears about losing touch with humanity in a tech-driven world. Emma listened, sometimes offering counsel, other times just bearing witness. Their relationship evolved into one of mutual respect, complicated yet genuine. As autumn arrived, Horizon launched the first fully integrated Neuralink Athena pilot in several cities. The results were promising but not without challenges. Some users reported moments of overwhelming emotion, sudden memories flooding unexpectedly, or discomfort with the AI's persistence. Horizon responded swiftly, refining safety protocols and expanding user education. Emma traveled extensively, speaking at conferences, universities, and community centers, advocating for an ethical emotional AI future. At a TED Talk in Chicago, she posed a question to the audience: what if the key to solving our biggest problems isn't just more intelligence, but more understanding? The talk went viral. Overnight, Emma became a public figure not just in tech but in cultural conversations about empathy, technology, and humanity. But with visibility came scrutiny. A data leak exposed private user interactions, an unintentional breach caused by a third-party contractor. Although no sensitive emotional data was compromised, the incident shook Horizon and its users. Emma took full responsibility, issuing a heartfelt apology and doubling down on transparency and security. The company rebuilt trust through open forums, direct user engagement, and independent audits. The experience left Emma wary but more determined than ever. In the quiet moments between chaos, Emma found solace in her renewed relationship with Sarah. They shared long conversations over coffee, bridging years of silence with laughter and tears. Sarah admitted she'd once resented Emma's ambition, feeling left behind, but now admired her courage to follow a path few dared. Emma realized that success wasn't just measured in technological breakthroughs but in the fragile connections that sustained her. Then came the unexpected. One chilly evening, as Emma prepared to leave the office, she received an encrypted message. It was from an unknown source but unmistakably intelligent and deliberate. "You've built a bridge. Now, are you ready to cross it?" Intrigued and cautious, Emma responded. Over the following days, a cryptic dialogue unfolded. The sender identified as Orpheus, a mysterious figure claiming to represent a global network of emotional AI pioneers who believed that Horizon's work was only the beginning. Orpheus proposed a secret summit, an invitation to join a collective effort to develop a universal emotional intelligence protocol that transcended borders, languages, and cultures. The idea was both exhilarating and daunting. Emma discussed it with Elon, Naomi, and her core team. The possibilities were immense, but so were the risks. What if such a network fell into the wrong hands? What if the technology was weaponized or exploited? Ultimately, Emma's instinct for connection prevailed. She accepted the invitation, seeing it as a chance to shape the future on a global scale. The summit was held in a secluded mountain retreat, surrounded by ancient forests and crisp air. Delegates from every continent gathered, scientists, philosophers, artists, and activists, all united by a vision of emotional intelligence as a force for healing and unity. Emma felt both awed and humbled. Over intense days of dialogue, workshops, and demonstrations, they shared breakthroughs and challenges, blending cutting-edge AI research with indigenous wisdom, psychological science, and spiritual traditions. The atmosphere was electric with possibility. Yet, beneath the optimism, Emma sensed tensions. Different cultural perspectives on emotion sometimes clashed. Questions arose about sovereignty, privacy, and the role of AI in human evolution. Emma found herself mediating, advocating for a framework that honored diversity while fostering collaboration. The summit culminated in a declaration. A living charter for ethical emotional AI development, emphasizing respect, transparency, user agency, and the sacredness of feeling. Emma was chosen to help lead the charter's implementation, a role she accepted with humility and resolve. Returning home, Emma felt transformed. The journey had expanded her understanding of empathy, not just as a personal trait but as a global imperative. Horizon refocused on integrating these principles, developing tools that respected cultural nuances while promoting shared humanity. But the world was watching. Governments expressed both interest and suspicion. Some sought partnerships, others issued regulations aiming to control emotional AI development. Emma found herself navigating a complex geopolitical landscape, advocating tirelessly for openness and human rights. Amidst this, Emma received a call from Elon. His voice was quieter than usual. He spoke of a new project, a Neuralink venture aimed at directly connecting human brains to collective emotional networks. "It's the next frontier," he said. "But it needs your vision. Your ethics." Emma felt the weight of history pressing down. She thought of Dahlia, of the betrayals, the breakthroughs, and the fragile hope that had carried her this far. "I'm ready," she said. The Neuralink Collective Interface, or NCI as Elon called it, was unlike anything Emma had imagined. It wasn't just an upgrade, it was a quantum leap. Instead of individual brain-machine connections, NCI proposed a shared emotional network where thoughts, feelings, and memories could be experienced collectively, transcending language and distance. The promise was profound, enhanced empathy on a scale humanity had never seen. But so was the risk. What would it mean to share not just data but raw emotion, unfiltered and immediate? Could privacy survive in such intimacy? Emma's role was pivotal, to embed ethical safeguards, user autonomy, and cultural sensitivity into the design. She worked side by side with Elon and the Neuralink team in Silicon Valley, a high-security lab pulsing with nervous energy and innovation. The interface relied on microneural implants capable of real-time emotional exchange. Volunteers were carefully selected, people from diverse backgrounds, tested for psychological resilience. The first phase involved low-intensity connections, allowing participants to sense moods or empathic states without overwhelming intrusion. Emma observed the sessions closely. Participants reported moments of profound connection, feeling joy as a stranger smiled, sadness as someone grieved miles away, hope as a community celebrated small victories. But there were also moments of discomfort, confusion, even panic when emotions surged unexpectedly or boundaries blurred. Emma knew the interface needed a delicate balance of openness and control. The technology had to be a bridge, not a cage. As the pilot expanded, Emma introduced emotional firewalls. User-controlled filters that allowed individuals to regulate the depth and type of shared feeling. The system also included reset points, moments when users could disengage and return to their own emotional space. These features were revolutionary but raised new questions about authenticity. If users could filter emotions, did that dilute the collective experience? Or was it necessary to preserve individuality? The debate stirred intense discussion within the team and broader philosophical circles. Meanwhile, public reaction oscillated between awe and fear. Media outlets dubbed the project the Empathy Network, portraying it as either humanity's greatest hope or its most dangerous experiment. Activists called for strict regulations, enthusiasts clamored to join. Emma's TED Talk on the NCI's potential went viral again, sparking global conversations about the future of connection and identity. One volunteer, a veteran named Luis, described his experience. "For the first time since returning home, I felt understood, not just by my family, but by a whole network of people. It was like my pain wasn't mine alone anymore. That made it lighter." Stories like Luis's fueled Emma's resolve. Yet, the pilot wasn't without setbacks. Some participants experienced emotional burnout or blurred boundaries that affected relationships outside the network. Privacy concerns intensified when rumors surfaced about possible government interest in accessing the collective's data streams. Emma convened emergency meetings to address these fears head-on. She advocated for ironclad privacy protections, community governance models, and transparent oversight. Her leadership was tested like never before. One night, after a particularly grueling day, Emma received a call from Naomi. The Empath Collective had encountered a crisis. A member connected to the NCI pilot had suffered a psychological breakdown triggered by unfiltered emotional transmission. The incident made headlines, fueling skepticism and backlash. Emma flew immediately to Detroit to support the team and the individual affected. She met with the participants' family, therapists, and the wider community. The experience was a sobering reminder of the technology's power and limits. Healing required more than innovation, it required care, compassion, and human presence. Emma resolved to deepen Horizon's partnership with mental health professionals and community leaders, embedding those voices at every stage of development. Returning to Silicon Valley, Emma found Elon waiting. His expression was somber but determined. "We're at a crossroads," he said. The stakes couldn't be higher. Together, they outlined a roadmap emphasizing ethical AI, user empowerment, and societal benefit. They proposed a global consortium to oversee emotional AI development, inviting governments, NGOs, and citizen representatives. The announcement was met with cautious optimism. At a gala unveiling the consortium, Emma spoke passionately, "Technology is only as humane as the values we embed within it. Our mission is not to replace human connection, but to deepen and expand it, to make empathy accessible to all." The event marked a turning point. Horizon's work became a beacon for responsible innovation. Emma found herself at the center of a new movement, a synthesis of technology, ethics, and emotional wisdom. Through all this, Emma's personal life flourished quietly. She and Sarah continued to rebuild their bond, sharing moments of joy and vulnerability. Emma also nurtured a growing friendship with Elon, grounded in mutual respect and shared vision, though she remained cautious of the man behind the myth. Late one evening, as Emma prepared to leave the lab, she reflected on the journey so far, from that first daring conversation with Elon to this moment on the cusp of a new human era. She realized that her IQ was never the measure of her worth or impact. It was the willingness to feel deeply, to listen, and to act with courage that had truly shaped her story. As she looked out over the city lights, Emma felt a surge of hope. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and surprises. But it was also full of possibility, a chance to redefine what it meant to be human in a world where technology and heart beat as one. Emma's vision for the future was unfolding in ways she had only dared to imagine. The Global Consortium on Emotional AI had become a dynamic hub, where technologists, ethicists, psychologists, and activists convened to set standards that balanced innovation with humanity. This collective effort was vital to prevent the technology from becoming a tool of manipulation or exclusion. Emma was at the heart of this movement, her voice increasingly influential but tempered with humility. Meanwhile, Horizon continued to push boundaries with Athena and the Neuralink collective interface. The fusion of emotional AI and neural implants promised a new frontier, one where empathy could be shared, not just expressed. Emma was fascinated by the profound implications. Could such technology reshape society's understanding of connection, trust, and even governance? But with progress came complexity. The consortium faced thorny debates about consent, data sovereignty, and emotional autonomy. Different cultures and governments held divergent views on how much emotional sharing was ethical or desirable. Emma advocated tirelessly for user agency, the right to control when, how, and with whom emotions were shared. She insisted that emotional AI must enhance freedom, not restrict it. At Horizon's lab, the team worked feverishly on the next iteration of the interface. This version included advanced machine learning models capable of interpreting emotional context with unprecedented subtlety. Emma spent hours testing the system herself, exploring the nuances of joy, sorrow, anger, and hope as mediated through Athena. The experience was deeply moving. It made her realize that emotions were not static data points but living currents, ever-changing, intertwined with memory, culture, and identity. Public interest in emotional AI surged. Universities introduced courses on the ethics and applications of emotional intelligence technologies. Corporations sought partnerships to improve workplace well-being. Yet, amidst the enthusiasm, Emma remained vigilant. She remembered the warnings of Naomi and the Empath Collective about the dangers of emotional exploitation. Emma knew that technology's power must be wielded with responsibility and care. One afternoon, Emma received a call from Jasmine, the young woman from Detroit whose grief journey had touched her deeply. Jasmine reported a breakthrough. She had started a community support group using Athena, helping others process loss through shared stories and guided emotional exercises. Emma felt a swell of pride. This was the true impact of their work, real lives transformed by connection and compassion. But shadows loomed as well. The consortium uncovered attempts by rogue actors to hack emotional AI systems, seeking to manipulate users' feelings for political or financial gain. The revelations triggered urgent discussions on cybersecurity, transparency, and international cooperation. Emma spearheaded initiatives to fortify defenses and educate users about emotional data safety. At a major tech conference, Emma delivered a keynote titled "Empathy as the Next Frontier." She spoke about the journey from IQ to emotional intelligence, the challenges of integrating AI with human feeling, and the moral imperative to build technologies that uplift rather than divide. Her words resonated deeply, earning standing ovations and sparking widespread reflection. Behind the scenes, Emma's relationship with Elon continued to evolve. They shared moments of candid conversation about the loneliness of leadership and the weight of innovation. Elon confessed his fears about the ethical pitfalls of their creations, and Emma reassured him that vigilance and dialogue were their best safeguards. Their partnership was a blend of brilliance and humanity, fraught yet hopeful. As autumn deepened, Horizon rolled out a public beta of the newest Neuralink Athena interface. The response was a mix of awe and caution. Users reported profound insights and emotional breakthroughs, but some experienced challenges adjusting to the intensity of shared emotional states. Horizon expanded support services and refined user controls, emphasizing that healing was a process, not a quick fix. Late one evening, Emma sat in her office reviewing feedback when she received an unexpected visitor, Sarah. The two embraced, their bond stronger than ever. Sarah confided that watching Emma's journey had inspired her to pursue psychology, hoping to combine science and empathy in her own way. Emma felt a surge of hope for the next generation, one where technology and heart could coexist and thrive. Yet, Emma's biggest test came when the consortium faced a crisis. A powerful nation announced plans to deploy emotional AI for surveillance and social control, ignoring ethical guidelines. The announcement sent shockwaves through the global community. Emma joined an emergency summit, advocating for collective action and sanctions. The struggle was daunting, exposing the fragility of trust in a world where technology could both heal and harm. In the face of adversity, Emma reaffirmed her belief in human resilience. She wrote an open letter to the world, urging transparency, respect for emotional sovereignty, and the shared responsibility to nurture empathy as a universal value. The letter went viral, rallying public support and influencing policymakers. Emma's message was clear: technology was not destiny, humanity was. As the year closed, Emma reflected on the path that had brought her here, from that pivotal moment when she told Elon her IQ, to the present frontier of emotional AI and neural connection. The journey had been marked by struggle, discovery, and profound growth. She knew challenges lay ahead, but she was ready. Because she understood now that true intelligence wasn't measured in numbers or circuits but in the courage to feel, to connect, and to build a future where every heart mattered. The winter months brought a new rhythm to Emma's life, a blend of intense work and quiet reflection. Horizon was scaling up its emotional AI platforms, integrating lessons learned from the Neuralink collective interface pilots and consortium feedback. Emma found herself increasingly drawn to the philosophical questions underpinning their technology, questions about identity, consciousness, and the nature of empathy itself. One evening, as snow fell softly outside her apartment window in San Francisco, Emma sat with a notebook, jotting down thoughts that had been swirling in her mind. Could emotional AI evolve beyond simulation and data processing to genuinely augment human consciousness? Could it nurture empathy at a level that would change not just individuals but society at large? These questions had no easy answers, but Emma believed the pursuit was worth it. That belief was put to the test when Horizon received an invitation to partner with a leading university's neuroscience department. The proposal was to conduct a long-term study of emotional AI's effects on brain plasticity and social behavior. Emma saw it as an unprecedented opportunity to deepen understanding and validate their approach scientifically. She worked closely with the researchers, designing protocols that balanced innovation with ethics and participant well-being. The study recruited diverse volunteers, including people recovering from trauma, caregivers, educators, and artists. Early findings were promising. Participants showed improved emotional regulation, empathy, and social engagement after sustained interaction with the AI systems. Emma felt both excitement and responsibility. These results could revolutionize mental health care and education, but only if applied with care. As Horizon prepared to publish the findings, the world spotlight intensified. Media coverage ranged from hopeful profiles to critical exposés warning of emotional manipulation and loss of privacy. Emma embraced transparency, inviting journalists and skeptics to visit the lab, witness the work firsthand, and engage with users. She believed openness was the best antidote to fear. Amid this public scrutiny, Emma's personal life offered a grounding anchor. She and Sarah celebrated their anniversary quietly, sharing stories, laughter, and dreams. Sarah revealed her plans to enroll in graduate school, inspired by Emma's journey. Emma felt a profound gratitude for this renewed connection, a source of strength in a demanding world. Yet, the pace of innovation brought new dilemmas. As the Neuralink collective interface expanded, some users reported unexpected side effects. Dreamlike states, memory shifts, and heightened emotional sensitivity that sometimes blurred reality and shared experience. Emma convened a multidisciplinary task force to investigate. The findings were complex but clear: the interface was altering neural pathways in ways not fully understood. This raised urgent questions about long-term effects and consent. Emma advocated for caution, proposing a temporary pause on broader rollout until safety could be ensured. The decision sparked debate within Horizon and the consortium. Some saw it as a setback, others hailed it as a responsible move. Emma's leadership was both challenged and affirmed. During this period, Emma was approached by a global humanitarian organization facing a crisis: refugee communities displaced by climate disasters, suffering trauma and isolation. They sought Horizon's technology to support emotional healing and community rebuilding. Emma was deeply moved. She saw an opportunity to apply their work where it was needed most. Collaborating with field experts, Horizon adapted Athena for low-resource environments, focusing on accessibility, cultural relevance, and resilience building. Pilot programs launched in refugee camps across multiple continents, blending technology with human support networks. The results were inspiring. People reported reduced anxiety, stronger social bonds, and renewed hope. Emma traveled to meet these communities, listening to stories of loss and courage that transcended borders. These encounters reaffirmed her conviction that empathy was a universal language, capable of bridging even the deepest divides. Back in Silicon Valley, Emma faced another pivotal moment when a former Horizon employee published a whistleblower report alleging data mishandling and ethical lapses. The report triggered regulatory investigations and public concern. Emma responded swiftly, committing to full cooperation, independent audits, and policy reforms. She addressed the public directly, acknowledging past mistakes and outlining steps toward rebuilding trust. The crisis was painful but ultimately strengthened Horizon's commitment to integrity and accountability. Throughout these trials, Emma's relationship with Elon remained complex yet vital. They shared candid conversations about failure, resilience, and the human cost of innovation. Elon confided moments of doubt and loneliness, and Emma offered empathy and perspective. Their bond was a testament to the messy, beautiful reality behind visionary pursuits. As spring approached, Emma prepared for another major milestone. The launch of Horizon's latest platform integrating emotional AI with virtual reality environments. The goal was immersive empathy training for professionals in healthcare, education, and social services. Emma believed this could transform how people understood and responded to others' feelings. The launch event was a culmination of years of work and dreams. Emma's keynote emphasized the power of technology to cultivate compassion and connection. The audience's response was overwhelming, blending hope with recognition of the journey's challenges. That night, as Emma stood alone beneath a starry sky, she reflected on how far she had come, from a young woman with a secret IQ to a leader shaping the future of emotional intelligence. The path had been filled with unexpected twists, profound losses, and incredible discoveries. But above all, it had been a story of heart, of the courage to feel, to connect, and to imagine a better world where technology and humanity walked hand in hand. The success of the immersive empathy training platform sparked widespread interest beyond Horizon's initial projections. Emma found herself traveling across the country, speaking at universities, hospitals, and corporate conferences about the transformative power of emotional AI paired with virtual reality. She met doctors who used the platform to better understand patients' experiences, teachers who fostered deeper connections with their students, and social workers who found new tools to combat burnout and trauma. Each story reinforced her belief that technology could amplify the very best of human nature, compassion and understanding. But as the platform's user base expanded, unexpected challenges surfaced. Some users reported feeling overwhelmed by the intensity of simulated emotions, experiencing what psychologists termed empathy fatigue. Emma and her team responded by developing adaptive interfaces that calibrated emotional exposure based on individual thresholds, integrating mindfulness techniques and therapeutic guidance. The lessons deepened Horizon's commitment to user-centered design and ongoing mental health support. Meanwhile, the consortium continued to grapple with global ethical issues. In particular, the question of consent in emotional AI networks remained a hot topic. Some cultures emphasized collective consent and communal sharing, while others prioritized individual privacy above all else. Emma advocated for customizable consent frameworks that respected cultural diversity without compromising core ethical standards. She facilitated dialogues between policymakers, technologists, and indigenous leaders to co-create guidelines that were inclusive and respectful. Amidst these efforts, Horizon faced increasing scrutiny from tech rivals who questioned the safety and scalability of emotional AI. Emma welcomed the challenge, inviting independent researchers to audit the technology and publish their findings openly. Transparency became a cornerstone of Horizon's philosophy, earning both praise and criticism. In the thick of this, Emma's personal life continued to evolve. Sarah had graduated and begun work as a trauma counselor, bringing new insights and shared values to their partnership. They supported each other through the pressures and joys of their respective paths, grounding Emma amid the whirlwind of innovation. One afternoon, Emma received an unexpected message from a distant relative she had never met, a brilliant neuroscientist working on consciousness research. The cousin, Dr. Marcus Hale, was intrigued by Horizon's work and proposed a collaboration exploring how emotional AI could interface with altered states of consciousness, including meditation and psychedelic therapies. The idea fascinated Emma, opening new horizons for exploration. Together, they organized a pilot study combining neural interfaces with guided consciousness expansion techniques. The initial results were groundbreaking. Participants reported heightened self-awareness, emotional resilience, and transformative insights into their personal narratives. The implications were profound, suggesting emotional AI could not only connect people but also catalyze healing and growth at the deepest levels. Emma's team worked closely with ethicists and spiritual leaders to navigate the complex terrain of integrating technology with ancient practices. The collaboration was a vivid example of how Horizon's vision transcended traditional boundaries, merging science, technology, and human wisdom. Yet, the journey was not without tension. Critics raised concerns about the commodification of spirituality and the potential for misuse. Emma engaged openly with these critiques, emphasizing the importance of consent, transparency, and the preservation of cultural integrity. Meanwhile, Horizon's work caught the attention of policymakers grappling with the social impacts of rapidly evolving technology. Emma was invited to advise on national and international frameworks addressing emotional AI's role in healthcare, education, and social cohesion. Her influence grew, as did her sense of responsibility. She often reflected on how the initial spark, a casual revelation of her IQ to Elon Musk, had cascaded into a movement reshaping the future of human connection. One crisp autumn evening, Emma attended a community event celebrating the anniversary of the Neuralink collective interface pilot. Volunteers and participants shared stories of growth, healing, and renewed hope. Emma listened as Luis, the veteran who had inspired her early work, spoke about how the experience had transformed his understanding of service and belonging. The event was a poignant reminder of technology's potential when guided by empathy and ethics. As the night deepened, Emma found herself in quiet conversation with Naomi, who had become a close collaborator and friend. They spoke candidly about the challenges ahead, the technological, ethical, and societal hurdles that still needed crossing. Naomi reminded Emma that progress was never linear but a continuous dance of hope, struggle, and renewal. Emma agreed, feeling both the weight and the wonder of their shared mission. Returning home, Emma reflected on the delicate balance they maintained between innovation and humanity. She understood that emotional AI was not a panacea but a tool, one that required vigilant stewardship and a commitment to the fundamental values of respect, empathy, and freedom. The path forward was uncertain and full of surprises, but Emma was ready to lead with heart and courage, knowing that the journey itself was the destination. As winter settled in again, Emma found herself reflecting on the rapid evolution of her journey and the world around her. Horizon's innovations had reshaped conversations about human connection, technology, and the future of empathy, but the pace of change also brought new uncertainties. The Neuralink collective interface and emotional AI platforms were becoming integral parts of daily life for thousands, yet questions lingered about their long-term social and psychological effects. Emma dedicated herself to understanding these complexities, partnering with social scientists, anthropologists, and ethicists to conduct comprehensive studies. One compelling discovery emerged from ethnographic research in communities integrating emotional AI. While many users experienced enhanced understanding and compassion, some reported feelings of alienation, an unintended side effect of heightened emotional transparency that sometimes exposed deep-seated conflicts or vulnerabilities. Emma recognized the need for more nuanced support systems. She championed developing community-based frameworks where technology worked alongside human care networks, creating spaces for safe emotional exploration and healing. Horizon launched initiatives to train facilitators and counselors to guide users through these challenges, emphasizing that technology could never replace human empathy but should amplify it. During this period, Emma's leadership style evolved. She moved from being a visionary innovator to a compassionate steward, balancing ambition with attentiveness to human needs and limits. She fostered a culture at Horizon that valued listening as much as inventing, creating forums for employees to share their experiences and concerns. This openness fostered resilience and creativity within the team. Meanwhile, global interest in emotional AI deepened. Governments sought advice on policies to manage the social impacts of widespread emotional data exchange. Emma engaged in intense negotiations, advocating for rights-based approaches that protected individual autonomy while encouraging collective well-being. One particularly challenging debate centered on emotional data ownership. Emma argued passionately that emotions, intangible yet deeply personal, should never be commodified without explicit consent. The discussions revealed diverse cultural perspectives on privacy, community, and the self, underscoring the complexity of crafting universally just policies. On a personal note, Emma and Sarah navigated the evolving rhythms of their relationship amid demanding careers and public attention. They found solace in simple rituals, morning walks, shared meals, quiet evenings, reminders that connection thrived in presence as much as progress. Sarah's work as a trauma counselor deepened Emma's appreciation for the human stories behind the technology, grounding her vision in lived experience. Unexpectedly, Emma received an invitation to join a global coalition of leaders focused on building what they called the empathy economy, a new framework for measuring and rewarding emotional intelligence and social contribution in economic systems. The coalition aimed to shift societal values away from purely financial metrics toward those honoring care, collaboration, and community well-being. Emma was intrigued but cautious. She saw the potential to influence systemic change but knew such shifts required widespread cultural transformation, not just technological innovation. Horizon contributed research and expertise, while Emma took on a public role advocating for expanded definitions of success and value. This period also brought moments of introspection and doubt. Emma confronted the toll of constant visibility, the burden of responsibility, and the occasional loneliness of leadership. She grappled with the question of how to sustain hope and meaning amid uncertainty and complexity. Conversations with Naomi and Elon provided perspective and encouragement, reminding her that growth often came from discomfort and that collective effort was the antidote to isolation. At Horizon, a breakthrough emerged when the team developed an advanced emotional AI system capable of detecting and responding to subtle cultural cues and context, greatly improving cross-cultural communication. This innovation opened doors for applications in diplomacy, education, and global health initiatives. Emma celebrated this milestone as a step toward bridging divides and fostering global empathy. Toward the year's end, Emma attended a summit in Geneva focused on the ethical governance of emotional AI. The gathering brought together stakeholders from governments, corporations, civil society, and indigenous communities. Emma's keynote emphasized humility, dialogue, and shared responsibility as guiding principles. She called for ongoing collaboration to ensure technology served the collective good without eroding diversity or autonomy. The summit concluded with a landmark declaration committing to principles of transparency, consent, and cultural respect in emotional AI development and deployment. The achievement was bittersweet, progress was hard-won and fragile, but it fueled Emma's resolve. Returning home, Emma paused to appreciate the journey, how a single moment of vulnerability, telling Elon her IQ, had spiraled into a movement reshaping how the world understood intelligence, emotion, and connection. She knew the story was far from over. But she also understood that every challenge was an opportunity to deepen empathy, every setback a lesson in resilience, and every heart touched a spark of change. Emma looked forward to the next chapter with a steady heart and open mind, ready to continue building a future where technology and humanity co-created a more compassionate world. The year's turning point arrived quietly, without fanfare, as Emma immersed herself in the culmination of Horizon's most ambitious project yet, a global network integrating emotional AI, neural interfaces, and community-driven support systems. This network was designed to foster real-time emotional connectivity across continents, enabling people to share feelings, empathize, and collaborate in ways never before possible. The potential was staggering, and so were the risks. Emma and her team had spent months preparing for the pilot launch, rigorously testing safeguards and consent protocols to prevent misuse or emotional overload. On launch day, a wave of excitement swept through Horizon's headquarters as the first connections went live. Volunteers from diverse backgrounds participated, experiencing an unprecedented sense of shared humanity despite vast cultural and geographic distances. Emma watched the data streams with awe and humility, witnessing moments of vulnerability and joy ripple through the network. Yet, the initial euphoria was tempered by unforeseen challenges. Some participants reported emotional dissonance. Feeling overwhelmed by the influx of others' feelings or experiencing emotional bleed-through that blurred personal boundaries. These reactions sparked urgent discussions about the limits of shared emotional experiences and the need for robust psychological support alongside technological innovation. Emma convened emergency sessions with psychologists, neuroscientists, and ethicists to refine the system's parameters. They implemented adaptive algorithms that allowed users to modulate their level of emotional exposure dynamically, preserving autonomy and well-being. Throughout this process, Emma maintained open communication with the pilot community, valuing transparency and user feedback as essential components of ethical design. The network's social impact soon became evident. In conflict zones, virtual empathy circles helped bridge divides, allowing opposing groups to share perspectives and humanize each other beyond political rhetoric. In isolated communities, the technology fostered connections that alleviated loneliness and built resilience. Emma traveled to witness these effects firsthand, meeting people whose lives had been touched in profound ways. One encounter stood out, a young activist in the Middle East who credited the network with transforming her approach to reconciliation, enabling her to heal and heal wounds that had seemed insurmountable. Yet, the expanded emotional connectivity also attracted the attention of powerful interests. Some governments sought to exploit the technology for surveillance or propaganda, pushing the boundaries of consent and privacy. Emma and the consortium responded by strengthening encryption, developing decentralized governance models, and advocating internationally for human rights protections. These struggles underscored the fragile balance between innovation and ethics in a rapidly evolving digital landscape. Emma's leadership was tested as never before. She found herself navigating political pressures, media scrutiny, and internal debates, all while maintaining a vision rooted in empathy and justice. Her relationship with Elon provided both support and challenge. Their conversations grew deeper and more complex, reflecting the weight of their shared responsibility and the personal costs of pioneering change. Amid these pressures, Emma also faced moments of profound personal insight. Meditation and reflective practices became essential to her well-being, helping her stay grounded amid the whirlwind. She wrote journal entries capturing the emotional texture of this journey, the hopes, fears, triumphs, and doubts that defined her evolving identity. These writings revealed a woman growing into a leader who embraced vulnerability as a source of strength. Horizon's work attracted new collaborators from unexpected quarters, artists, poets, spiritual leaders, each bringing unique perspectives that enriched the project's cultural resonance. Emma welcomed these contributions, recognizing that the future of emotional AI was not solely technological but deeply human and creative. The network's impact rippled through education, healthcare, and social justice initiatives, demonstrating that empathy, when nurtured intentionally, could be a powerful catalyst for systemic change. As the global pilot neared its one-year mark, Emma organized a summit to share lessons learned, celebrate successes, and chart the path forward. The event was attended by participants, experts, policymakers, and advocates from around the world. Emma's closing address was a heartfelt call to collective stewardship, emphasizing that the technology was only as good as the values guiding it. She reminded the audience that empathy was a practice, a commitment to seeing and honoring each other's humanity. The summit concluded with a declaration reaffirming the consortium's dedication to ethical innovation, inclusivity, and shared responsibility. Returning home, Emma reflected on the paradoxes she had encountered, the power and fragility of emotional connection, the tension between individual autonomy and collective care, the promise and peril of technology. She understood that her story, intertwined with Horizon's, was part of a larger human story, one of struggle, growth, and hope. As she looked toward the horizon, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey was far from over, but with each step, they were moving closer to a world where technology served not just minds, but hearts. And in that vision, she found her true measure, not in IQ or accolades, but in the courage to feel, to connect, and to lead with empathy. The final chapter of Emma's journey unfolded with the weight and wonder of a story coming full circle. Horizon had grown from a daring idea into a global movement redefining intelligence, emotion, and human connection. Yet Emma knew that true transformation was measured not by technology alone, but by the lives touched and the hearts opened along the way. The years of innovation, ethical battles, and personal sacrifice led Emma to a profound understanding that the essence of her work was love, love for humanity's potential, love that demanded vulnerability, courage, and relentless hope. As Horizon launched its next generation of emotional AI tools, designed to nurture empathy from early childhood through elder care, Emma found herself reflecting on the quiet moments behind the scenes. The times when she had doubted herself, when the pressure felt unbearable, and when a single act of kindness rekindled her resolve. At a global conference held in New York, Emma shared the stage with diverse voices, scientists, activists, artists, and community leaders. Together, they told stories of how emotional AI had fostered healing in refugee camps, strengthened bonds in fragmented communities, and inspired new ways of teaching and learning. Emma's keynote was a powerful blend of humility and vision. She recounted the moment she told Elon Musk her IQ, not as a boast, but as a seed that grew into a commitment to use intellect for empathy and impact. She asked the audience, "What if your greatest strength wasn't a number, but your willingness to feel and connect?" The question resonated deeply. That night, Emma stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city lights, feeling the pulse of possibility. She thought about Sarah, their journey together, and the network of relationships that had sustained her. She knew that the story she had lived was just one chapter in humanity's evolving narrative. In the weeks that followed, Emma focused on mentoring the next generation of leaders at Horizon. She emphasized the importance of integrity, empathy, and resilience, qualities that could not be coded into algorithms but must be cultivated in people. She shared lessons learned from failures and triumphs, encouraging young innovators to embrace complexity and uncertainty with open hearts. One day, Emma received a letter from a young woman in a small town, someone inspired by Emma's story and eager to use emotional AI to support mental health in her community. Emma responded with encouragement and offered Horizon's resources to help the initiative grow. This exchange reminded Emma of the ripple effect of courage and connection. Toward the end of the year, Emma and Elon met once more, not as visionary leaders or media figures, but as two people who had shared a remarkable journey. They spoke honestly about the challenges ahead, the personal costs of leadership, and the enduring power of curiosity and kindness. Elon expressed admiration for Emma's growth and vision. Emma acknowledged the sparks their encounter had ignited. They parted with a mutual understanding that their story was part of something larger, a movement toward a more empathetic, interconnected future. As the book closes, Emma looks toward a horizon filled with both uncertainty and promise. She embraces the truth that life's greatest lessons come from love and vulnerability, that intelligence alone is not enough to change the world without heart. She invites readers to consider their own journeys, what strengths they carry, what fears they face, and what acts of empathy they can offer. The final lines linger like a whisper and a call to action. Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emma's story, once sparked by a simple confession, has become a testament to the transformative power of connection. A story that challenges us all to listen, to feel, and to imagine a world where technology serves the human spirit, not replaces it. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?